Hi, everybody. This is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles. How are you doing? Well, today I have got not one, but 4 paranormal investigators. They are the members of the Black Hill Paranormal Investigations team out of South Dakota. And they cover the area of the Black Hills, the Badlands, Deadwoods, all those great, interesting places. So they've got lots of interesting things to tell us. So hold on and let me get them on right away. Hold on. So, guys, how are you all doing tonight?
Good.
Good.
What?
So, Mo, I'm going to let you go ahead if you want to introduce your team, and then we'll get going. You want to, go ahead and introduce yourself, by the way, because I'm just talking like if everybody knows who you are.
We are Black Hills Paranormal Investigations. My name's Maurice Miller. Most people call me Mo. I'm the lead investigator. Sitting next to me here to my right is Deb Sutton. She's one of our investigators. This is Lisa Abreu with the Pikachu hat on. She's one of our investigators. This is Mr. Mark Shadley, my co-lead investigator.
Hello.
Not present are Scott Remble, our case manager, and Leanne Harlan, who is also one of our investigators.
Okay. All right. I am so glad to have you guys on board tonight because I know that collectively and individually you both got a lot of experiences and stories to talk about. But Mo, I'm going to start asking what I ask all my guests is, did you have, either as a child or as an adult, what was the event? And then you guys, of course, that got you interested in the paranormal.
Okay. You want me to start with me?
Go ahead.
Sure. Go right ahead, whatever you guys want.
This was going to be kind of weird. A lot of people have some kind of epic
Did you
event.
say weird? Great. I'm only kidding. I love it. The weirder, the better. My favorite saying is, why be normal? Go right ahead, Mo. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
That's okay. No, but, most people have some kind of epic event.
Right.
Brings them into the paranormal. I can't say I had an epic event. In the household I grew up in with my mother and my grandmother, they were into dowsing and Ouija boards and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Okay.
So for me, it was just like an everyday thing. I'd come through the kitchen, Mom and they were doing the Ouija board, and I'm like, I'm going to go ride my bike with my buddies. As I got older, it kind of intrigued me.
Okay.
And then about junior high, high school, I started doing a lot of research on my own.
Okay.
And I found when you read things from all over the globe about ghost stories and whatnot, once you get the layers of the onion, as far as the cultures and stuff go, the claims are basically the same. So what got me interested was, are these actually stories or is this part of the human condition?
Mm-hmm.
That's what got me going. And there was 10 years ago, I got involved with a group in Rapid City, which was Black Hills Area Paranormal Society.
Okay.
I was about a year, and our team leader unfortunately killed himself.
Oh my God.
Right. And so anyway, and I knew the guys from BHPI, Black Hills Paranormal, and they knew me. So of course, the group I was with, we disbanded because that kind of took the heart and soul out of
I can imagine.
And then they brought me in with these crazy bunch here.
So I guess for you, the Ouija board was not the forbidden thing, huh?
Oh no, ma'am, no, not at all. Not at all.
And you know why I'm saying that, right? There's a lot of people that they try the Ouija board because it's like everybody tells them, "Don't do it." But
everybody has different views on that.
No, I know. But still, it's like, that's great. So let me ask you, though, growing up, you really didn't have, like you said, an experience of seeing a ghost or anything like that. It was just because it was a normal thing where you...
As a kid, you'd think you'd see stuff.
Okay.
And looking back now, obviously, by virtue of what I'm doing now, it could have been anything. But I remember as a young kid, I was maybe 5 or 6... Something scared the living daylights out of me. I can't remember exactly what it was. And my grandmother comes into my bedroom and she tells me, you do realize whatever's here in the dark is also here in the daytime. So at that point, I probably should have been committed.
That made you feel a lot better.
Exactly.
Oh my God. Okay, so who's next?
You want to go, Mark?
Yeah, I'll go. I'm Mark Shadley. Kind of what I'll tell you what got me kind of interested in this. I had an experience years and years ago. I was probably in my, I think I was right around 20, right around there. I was in the Army. I was actually stationed in Germany. And I was at my duty station. I was getting ready to be relieved. And what was really weird about it was I used to be a tower guard where we guarded, some of America's nuclear weapons at the time while it was still West Germany and East Germany and all that.
Right.
So I'm in the tower, and all of a sudden I start hearing somebody walking up the tower steps. And I'm thinking, well, that's weird. I didn't see my relief come. So I kind of stuck my head out, looked down. I don't see anybody, but I could still hear something coming up the steps.
Oh.
And I'm kind of thinking, okay, well, this is kind of weird. My first thought was, I never really thought anything about ghosts or spirits or any of that kind of stuff. I was just a young kid in the Army and having a great time, in Germany, So, but yeah, I hear these steps, and they keep coming up the tower steps, and the closer it seemed like it was getting, kind of the more freaked out I was starting to.
I was going to say, at some point, I'm sure you realized, okay, I'm hearing something, and there's nobody there.
Yeah, and sure, when you're in the military, you're trained for, all this different stuff, things you can see. But when you don't see something and you're hearing something, and it's clearly footsteps coming up these steps, but yet you're not seeing anything, I was starting to really kind of freak out. And I remember it got up to the final landing just below where I was standing.
Okay.
And I saw the Jeep coming with my relief in it. And I was so freaked out that I actually threw my my bulletproof vest and all of the gear with it over the edge of the tower, because I didn't want to carry it down to
You were like, how fast can I get down these steps, right?
And I threw it over. I still had my M16. I just took off running down the steps.
Because that was what? Just one way down, one way up. So
You're right. It's just a set of steps that just, curled up the tower. And I remember when I got down to that landing where I'd last heard the steps, when I hit that landing, and mind you, I'm hitting 3 steps every step practically, And
I was about to, when you said, I said, I know he's not going to tell me he vaulted over the,
Although I do better than that. I mean, I thought, no, because I figured, if I'm going to run down these steps, if there is something there that I can't see, then at least I'm going to knock it over and I can get out, get out of there. But when I got to that landing where I last heard the steps, it was just incredibly cold. It was just an incredible cold spot. And I had this real feeling of dread, of just sadness, dread. It was really a bizarre feeling. But I raced down the steps. I got down to the bottom, and I was fine. I grabbed my stuff. The guy that relieved me, he's looking at me kind of strange.
I can imagine.
Okay, bye, see you, have fun. And I jumped in the Jeep, and then he went up the steps. And it was weird because it was that experience I had there. It was, I couldn't figure out what the heck it was, and I had no answers for it. And I remember, you didn't really talk about that kind of stuff.
No, that's what I was going to say. Well, I was about to ask you, and I know that it must have been difficult. None of the other guards or relief ever described having the same thing? The same thing happened to them?
What's interesting about that is, you know how you kind of just all sit around and you just kind of look at each other and you kind of have, you want to say something,
but who's going to be first?
Who's going to be first? And I do remember it was probably a couple months later after that experience that a couple of us were kind of sitting around and, we were having a beer and all of a sudden somebody says, has anybody had any weird experience out here at this tower number 5? And I'm like, what do you mean, weird experience? Well, I was there one night and I heard footsteps. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, I did too. And then a couple of us got to talking about it. And then a guy come over and we started, and come to find out, there'd been quite a few guys that had been stationed on that tower that had had the very same exact experience.
And at different times then, I take it.
And, well, it was all during the night shift. It was between, and what we did was we had shifts, that went. It was after midnight, and I'm thinking it was anywhere between 2 and 4 in the morning.
Okay.
Right there is where the experiences were occurring. So it was really bizarre, and so I didn't know what to think of that. After I left the Army, I went into a career in law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
I was a police officer for 30 years, retired, and my wife and I, we moved out here to South Dakota, and we saw these guys, and I joined up with them, and because I just really had all these questions, but no answers, and I was kind of hoping that I could find some answers getting into this group, but I'll tell you right now, as a paranormal investigator, any paranormal investigator will tell you still have all those unanswered questions out there.
Or more.
Or more.
Yeah. Let me ask you, and in all those years, you never had another experience?
To be honest with you, no.
Okay.
Until I became, an investigator.
Right.
Then we had a few, we've had a few experiences, but I never really had anything, other than that first experience when I was in the military, but it had always been in the back of my mind, like, okay,
let me tell you something. That experience it's not ambiguous, it was like so clear, and then you got it validated by the other guys, so it's not like, some people say, well, I had a feeling, or I think, or, how can you escape the reality of you hear footsteps coming up, but there's nobody there? Well, it's like, okay.
Well, and I think a lot too is the fact that, as a police officer, you look at the facts. You don't,
Oh, sure.
You look at the evidence and stuff, and I guess that analytical mind comes into play. So sure. I guess I kind of closed myself off to opening up to things going on.
You know what? It's also easier, just like what most of us do. Is like, oh, it's my imagination, or it was the wind, or it was like whatever. So, how about you, girls?
Hi, Marlene.
Hi.
My name's Lisa Abreu, and I'm a little embarrassed because my story's not as exciting.
But she has a Pikachu hat.
I was going to say, I love Pikachu. What are you going to be embarrassed about, man? No.
I actually have no idea who these guys are. I was just walking
Pikachu power, go.
I was walking down in front of Deb's house, and they said they needed a fourth person. They asked me if I would come into the interview. So they gave me a shirt. I'm actually the newest investigator. I started with them in November of 2015.
Yep, so a year and a half.
Yep, and I've loved every minute of it. I try to go on every investigation that I possibly can, because everyone is different and everyone is exciting, because there's a story to every single investigation. I don't have a personal experience. Mine's not intense. It's as like any other kid. I've always loved ghost stories. I read ghost stories. We told ghost stories, at my grandmother's house. And as I started growing up, I just became more interested in horror movies and more ghost stories. And it wasn't actually until 2013 that I became a death investigator for the Medical Examiner's Office, District 1 in Florida.
Okay.
And I started to look at death from a different perspective. And I said, I wonder what life really is after.
Is it this it?
Actually, yes, So, that's actually piqued my interest more. I did dabble a little bit in a society that was out in Pensacola. I was only with them for a very short time. I actually met these guys while I was in Florida.
That's how cool we are. People in Florida know of us. Just saying, shameless plug, and I got to do it.
I was stationed at Hobart, Florida. I was a reservist out there.
Okay.
I said, my husband and I were getting ready to PCS or to transfer out here to South Dakota, and I said, I was asking around. I said, hey, does anybody know about some paranormal investigation teams out there? And they said, oh, yeah, you got to try Black Hills Paranormal Investigations. Just Google them. So I Googled them. I found them. I called them first thing. I actually notified them by email before I came up here.
Yes, you did.
And I said, do you guys have room for me? And coincidentally, they did.
So come on down.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you something, Lisa. And just so if what you did in Florida, it was for the state, right? Or for the county, or for what?
It was for a district. It was
for a district. Okay. Let me ask you: are you the one that goes in, like when let's say the police, somebody's deceased, let's say, and you go in there and you examine them and determine cause of
Yes.
death or whatever?
So, yes, ma'am. I'm the eyes and ears of the medical
Right.
examiner, so I help determine cause of death and cause and manner of death, and then we
Right.
determine whether it falls under medical examiner jurisdiction or if we just release the bodies to the funeral homes.
To the
So,
funeral
yes.
home.
Which translates to ew for regular people.
Well, I'm sure that's a funky job, but let me. And I'm going to ask you. I know you didn't say. Did you ever go to any scene? And I know, apart from maybe if somebody, if you know, like you said, the ooh factor, that you ever got a weird feeling. I mean, I know that's like wow. It's like okay, a dead body. But did you ever go someplace where you felt different? Let's say than other times that you had gone to see somebody that had died.
No, I think just the context of the death was different itself. I never felt anything different. I think had I gone back, returned to the scene, I
Okay.
might. Now, I will tell you that there was one suicide of a 20-year-old, and of course I won't, divulge who she is.
Okay.
And from that point on, when I was driving down the road, I always got a really weird feeling. Like, it was very heavy. And I don't know if it was because, I was there, on scene,
Okay.
prior, or if maybe I felt something. But it was always heavy. And there were other locations where I went where I reported death scenes that I didn't feel that way. But it was for some reason this one particular place. And the 20-year-old's death actually, it impacted me a little more.
Sure.
For the first few months, and then, of course, unfortunately, we had other subsequent deaths.
Right.
But for some reason, her story wasn't, to her family, her story was unique. But
Of course.
in the investigation world, it was like many other deaths that were similar to hers. But for some reason, her story just impacted me, and I think it was just because of her story and
Right.
her family, and so there's the whole context of death and everything surrounding, all the circumstances surrounding death.
Right, and the reason why I ask you is that, there's a theory that sometimes when people die like that under these circumstances, and when I say it's like not in a hospital or a medical setting, that a lot of times they tend to stick around their bodies, for whatever reason, whether it's a suicide or, hey, I died and I've been dead here a week and somebody come find me. That's why I asked you that question, but I know what you're saying. When you were going in there, your mindset was, I'm here to do my job, and probably I imagine there was other people there, so.
But I was in touch with her parents,
Okay.
at least her father, weeks after, and they since sold the house because they were very uncomfortable. And I think with the memories and the loss of their daughter.
Sure.
But he did comment to me that he said I still feel like she's here,
Okay.
and that's why they couldn't live there anymore, because it was very painful for them.
Sure. I can imagine. It's like you don't want to leave, but you gotta, because if not, they can never get beyond it. That's a very difficult scenario for anybody. Okay, so my last lady, what's going on?
I'm Deb Sutton. I've been in this field since 2000.
Okay.
Another group back in Minnesota.
All right.
In 2008, and I was lucky enough to meet these guys and join them. Was it 2010?
Was it 2010?
2011?
Yeah, it was right.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Okay. So
Um,
you've gone on a lot of stuff, huh? So you've been there, that's like, what, 7 years?
Yep. 7 year and then 2000 to 2010. And then 2008 Minnesota.
And and you know what? To me personally, I think that's great, and I'll tell you for two reasons. Because I see that a lot of paranormal teams, they come and go very quickly. Okay, number one, because they buy into the TV reality version of what paranormal investigations are, and then they find out that that's not it. So there's a lot of boring moments, or like, okay,
Yeah, exactly.
Or believe it or not, sometimes I find that when you have a group that's committed, when you got members that are committed, because there's nothing worse than you have to go out on a case and you have no coverage,
Right.
because nobody comes in, none of your members, and I understand, because I've been there, like, where sometimes some people can't go and others, but that you have enough people that, hey, I've got a team that's going to show up.
Exactly.
Well, it's interesting because when the group was started, the group was essentially founded in 2000, towards the end of 2007.
Okay.
And when my wife and we moved out here, we got on the team in April of 2008. So we were kind of one of the first, people on the team. And it's funny because Mo and we've discussed this because at one point the ones that had founded the group actually left the area and then kind of picked up. And you're right. A lot of people don't understand how much work and effort and time it takes to a group to maintain and to build on your credibility and your experiences and experience. And Mo and we've discussed this. It's kind of like, if everybody knew exactly what it was like to be a paranormal investigator, probably wouldn't be that many people that want to.
It's not all fun and games. That's for darn sure.
I will tell you, there's a lot of groups that they within the year or 18 months the most. That's it. They're non-existent anymore. They just can't stick it out. Even because, first of all, like you said, they if you have a team, you're supposed to have a team, okay? And then if people don't show up when you need them to, there goes that. And as a matter of fact, in my last show, I said it. I did like my little thing at the end, and I said, number one, I was saying, when you're the client, they don't understand it. Just because somebody calls themselves paranormal investigators, you're opening your door to strangers.
Exactly.
Okay? So you gotta, if you ever get vibes from somebody that just because they say they're paranormal investigators, you don't get the right vibe, do not let them into your house. Okay.
Absolutely.
And even though I think the majority, and I said the other way around to paranormal teams, when you got team leaders that got a space for a new member, believe me, I know a lot of people throughout the years that they call me with that. Sometimes they pull out their hair because they picked the wrong person, because you're representing that team, and you're going into some of these places, and sometimes you're like, oh, this was a mistake, because either they don't know how to behave, or
you know how they're going to react.
Or they're going to react.
One thing about our group too is that we have to. We're not criminals or anything. We have to do a little bit.
We actually do. Mark and we work really hard, for lack of better terms. We really do try to vet whatever person we might be bringing in.
Oh, no, and that's what I'm saying, that sometimes people, and I tell them, there's a lot of people running around that say, I want to be a paranormal investigator, and they have good intentions, but for whatever reason,
well, that's one of the things that we will tell our clients, that my contacts, we'll tell them, listen, if you have any doubts whatsoever about us, please check us out. Check out the people that investigate.
You know what? One of the best things that they could check out, your longevity. When you see a team that's been around for a while, that right there is a good sign.
Yes, it is.
It's a good sign, because, like I said, usually if they're not committed, or they're people or whatever, then they just kind of fall by the wayside. So anyway, guys, I know that you guys are there next to the Black Hills and the Badlands and Deadwood and all these interesting historical places. Do you got anything waiting that you're going to go to, or something that you guys have recently done?
Oh, we have an investigation set up in the next couple weeks. I don't think we can tell anybody where it is yet.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Right. But here's the cool thing. It's a historical location. We've been there before, and the results did not disappoint.
Okay. All right.
And with that being said, what we normally do, once we get done with the investigation, if the client gives us the okay, we will put it on our Facebook page, website, things like that, and explain what we did, where it was at, the whole 9 yards.
There's one place I wanted to ask you about, and for all I know, that might be the one that you're talking about. Is I saw one of the locations that you guys went to, which I think it's a casino now, but that it was the place where Wild Bill Hickok got killed.
Yep. Super cool place. Super cool.
Tons of stuff happened there.
Okay. And that sounds really interesting, because, besides what happened to him, obviously, but that location sounds like should have a lot of things going on.
I'm going to give you a quick snippet. I want to let Mark explain it, because I think with what I'm going to talk about, if you walk into, there's a place called the Eagle Bar. Okay, it's a little bar, and it's all part of the whole location. Okay. Anyway, and I wasn't with you guys yet. I was still with BHAPs.
Right.
They were investigating in there, and there's a little stairwell. Like you go into the bar, then you at the back of the bar it goes up to it's like a half floor, if that makes sense.
Yeah, kind of like a little loft there.
Like a loft. Anyway, they've got a picture. Almost said a bad word. Kid you not? Of a child with a striped shirt and overalls coming down the stairs. A genuine photograph of this.
What?
It was amazing. Well, I'll let Mark take it from there.
Yeah, and we had been contacted by actually management of the casino.
Okay.
And they had asked, and they had said that, listen, our casino area and with some of our casino workers, the up above, the second floor,
right?
People are always hearing footsteps and stuff like that, and people go up there because they had storage up there, so they'd go up there to do something or get something or put something up there, and people would have experiences hearing footsteps or hear voices, and it had gotten so active.
Okay.
They had actually contacted us and said, listen, would you guys like to come in and conduct an investigation? And so, yeah, we came in, we did our initial pre-investigation walkthrough just to kind of hear claims of activity and where things were taking place.
Okay.
And then we started to work on the history of the location. Well, that location used to be, the second floor up there, used to be all part of a brothel system.
Okay.
Back in the day, and actually those brothels were active up until 1980.
But they're still active now, sort of.
Well, active in a different.
You know what? It's really funny because a lot of people think of these brothels, especially these old times, that they kind of die away. And I've recently did one, like in Central Florida, which was active like till 1978. Since like the 1880s, and everybody thinks that it's like, yeah.
And what was interesting about it is when we did conduct our investigation there, they actually gave us full run of the location, which was just really kind of incredible to us. But we conducted our investigation up there, and I can tell you, and I'll tell you right now, our group, we don't like to use the H word, haunted.
Right. No, I know.
It connotates so many different things.
Sure.
But I'll tell you something. If I was ever going to use the H word on anywhere,
that'd be the place.
This is probably going to be the
one
place.
of them. There's a couple. There's a couple.
But we had so many incredible experiences that we actually heard a female voice up there in a kind of a sing-songy voice, doing woo-hoo.
Oh my God, that's great.
We actually have the audio. It's legit.
It's amazing. Have the audio.
It's amazing
that we were able to capture, and we went outside and tested to make sure it wasn't somebody outside. No, it was inside. It was right there where amongst us, and we had so many other experiences.
We had the Gwendolyn.
We got
it's all on our website. That's woefully out of date, but the stuff he's talking about is on our website.
Right. But we walked away with so many incredible EVP captures and experiences that when we had shown those, revealed those to our clients, they were just flabbergasted because we were able to validate
I was going to say, it sounds like they had their own experiences already to begin with. So
we were able to validate exactly everything that was going on there. And when we play some of this stuff, they'd say, oh, my God, that's exactly what we've heard.
Wow.
Or, oh, my God, yeah, that's exactly what's happened to us. And as we continued, we built up a relationship with them. Mm-hmm. We're actually able to go in there, and we investigated that location
numerous
probably 5 times.
That's great, because really, that's really how you get a good idea.
Exactly, and so we were able
what is there.
Yeah, exactly. We were really able to glean a lot of information, and we were able to debunk some stuff.
Right.
And then we were able to look at the history of the location. And what really was interesting about it was being able to look at the history and be able to kind of see how those all kind of interacted or played in together. With the history of the location, the actual history, and then some of the stories we were hearing. So
and it sounds like what you got there is active or intelligent hauntings versus residual, which is what's
right. Exactly
right.
Because you get that
experience there.
Oh yeah. This is recent, like a year and a half ago. We had a production company from the UK come out. They were filming us because they were going to do a sizzle tape, I guess you call it, for a show.
Right.
Of course, we got into the brothels. We took them up there. It was amazing as usual. We're in, was it the front or back hallway? I can't remember.
Yeah.
We're in the back hallway, and of course, there's rooms off the hallway, like a motel almost.
Right.
In the back corner, this room has Christmas trees and a bunch of weird stuff in there, and it's just a storeroom now. And I'm standing in the doorway. Mark and them are out in the hallway, and you were asking for Wild Bill or something.
Yeah.
Because we're doing an audio, an EVP session. And I'm sure you've read into this. You know how if you're standing somewhere and it feels like somebody invades your personal space?
Yes.
And I turned my head, and I kid you not for me to mark, there's a dude standing there.
Oh, my God.
Needless to say, I about crapped and fell back in it. Okay. Because I have a heart problem, so I fell up against the wall. And everybody on the team thought I was having a heart attack, which I wasn't, of course.
Right.
But we still don't know who exactly it was, because there's a ton of things that I could say, but it happened in a split second. Because I saw it, freaked out, and then it wasn't there, of course, anymore.
Right, and that, you can't fake that reaction.
Exactly.
It was real.
So, Mark, you wrote that book, Deadwood. Is this in Deadwood itself, right?
This is in downtown, yeah.
Okay, all right. Because I was thinking, from what little I've seen is that this, if any place is going to be haunted, like you said, it's going to be these brothels, because there was so much drama and things going on, and
well, the thing is with Deadwood that historically speaking, it's pretty recent, really. Within the last 120, 130 years, It isn't like the ancient Romans and different things like that. So whatever energy is there, this is going to sound really silly. I don't know. It's fresher. Does that make sense? You know what I'm trying to say?
Oh, sure.
You're running through exactly. Instead of running, say, through a castle in England, it's been there for 1,000 years.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Well, yeah, no, I agree. I think at some point you're hoping these dead people, like somebody comes and gets them or whatever,
But, the one thing that's kind of cool about Deadwood and the businesses down there, they're not really afraid of the ghosts that are there. They appreciate them, like they're just part of the family.
Well, it's part of the history of the town.
Yeah, they embrace it.
They embrace it, yeah.
But you know what? At the same time, and I'm going to ask you guys, considering the cast of characters that were out there, have you guys ever run across any malevolent entities? And by this, I don't mean the D word. Demon.
Right.
Bless your heart.
Okay, that is like so over the top. Have you ever run across any entities or feelings that you're like, wow?
Well, I think it's a kind of a team belief, if you will. I look at it this way: if you're a butthole while you're still walking,
right, there you go.
Okay, like remember when you were growing up, there was that old man that always hollered at you to get off his lawn or whatever.
Yes, yeah, yes.
Okay, so you tip over. If there's another side, why would you change? You'd be still.
Why would that energy be any different?
Right.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of people mistake that for demons and all this dark energies.
Yes. There's a lot of people that when they were running around, they were really,
oh yeah, sure.
Evil, for lack of a better word, in the sense of, hey, and especially in places like this where it was every man for himself,
Exactly. And we have run into places where I guess, and as an investigator yourself, you'll understand this. Where you're walking through a house or a business, and you walk from one room to the next, and it kind of smacks you in the face.
Yes.
The vibe in the room is different.
Yes.
And we ran into that. We've definitely ran into that where just even your little caveman brain is going, run. And
exactly.
Of course,
get out of here quick. Find the nearest exit.
Oh,
yes.
We don't.
Unless there's a spider involved.
And then he
okay, so that's like...
Just I watched your show the other night with the lady. She was a demonologist, I guess, with the rope.
Yes, Rita Strigala.
Should have seen her. She's like, oh.
Let me tell you something. But she's describing. There's this part where she says she goes to see this client, and the house is full of. No, she didn't know. She and the other team member walk into the house, and they hear something crunching underfoot. And when they look, it's roaches. And of course, that's when I start going, ah! And like, believe me, I live in South Florida. I know I can handle roaches, but if you get to some place and you're crunching roaches underfoot, that's like,
Yeah, I wouldn't like that either.
Beetles.
Oh.
We're talking about dead bodies right now. Sorry, we're talking forensics.
Because he gets it too.
But yeah, that was like that. That's when I had my moment there. It was like, see, that's where Marlene would have said, "I'm going home."
And then speaking of that, we ran into places here, and of course we're in the upper Midwest, I guess, or whatever region you want to call this. So we don't have a lot of roaches. Okay. But there'll be places you'll go, and it could be February where it's like 10 below out here, but you go upstairs in somebody's attic, and there's a ton of flies.
Oh.
And everybody's like, ooh, it's a demon because of the flies. No, because it's warm there, and the flies can still reproduce.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, yeah, you're going to find a bunch of dead flies and bugs. You know, you probably should call your local exterminator to take care of this, but it is what it is.
Right. That people try to read into it stuff that's not there. Like you said, it's like, think about it, you know. This is just an insect that's trying to stay alive. But, you know, it's like, hey, you know, so, and this is the thing, and, you know, I've never been up, well, one time I kind of skirted through the Badlands, but I was on my way. I was coming from Yellowstone, but I know these places have that feeling, but because I was out in California in the Motherlode country, which is the equivalent, like when these gold towns sprouted. Sure. It was the same setting, you know. They find gold, and overnight they get all these miners and brothels and gambling, and it's the same feeling, you know. And you hear some of the stories, and life was very rough out there. You know, the characters that you got out there are like, wow. So, you know, and that's the stuff that's historically known about. Let's not take into account all the people that they did away with, including prostitutes or miners or whoever. That nobody ever found out what happened to them.
Right, exactly.
You know?
And, you know, that's the thing that's interesting is that where I think you have a high incidence of paranormal reports of you know, active paranormal places are places like this where it was a very active, maybe even a very dangerous,
sketchy,
and
sketchy, modern
locations like mining camps.
Right.
And Deadwood was one of them, and just like any of those California mining towns and things like that. So, yeah, I think that because I've always said I think that what we're dealing with is energies of these people who have come before us. Mm-hmm. It's been imprinted upon the environment, and when the conditions are right, you know, things will just start popping off. I mean, because I don't know how many times, even just being in the brothels when we were investigating, we could all say this, is that there would be a point where it just seemed like, man, there's nothing going on,
and then all of
a sudden, it was just like all of a sudden it was just like pop, and it just a flurry of activity would take place.
Yes,
and we'd hear all sorts of weird things, see things, and then boom, it'd drop off. You know, so
and it's like that. That's why I'm saying that the fact that you guys are able to go back to this place more than once is great, because, like you said, sometimes stuff is like or nothing, right. And then you go back another day, it's like, okay, this is great, you know.
Exactly.
Yep.
And then you ask yourself, what's different? Not really, but maybe something's going on that you just you're not aware of, but makes all the difference as far as their ability to communicate. So let me ask you, do you guys use a lot of equipment, or how do you guys, you know, EVPs, like digital recorders, or what?
Oh my goodness! Do you know all the equipment we have?
Oh my goodness!
We have tons.
We have an arsenal.
Literally an arsenal.
It's
We have
not like what we really want.
Yeah, we have digital recorders, EMF, digital EMF meters. We have REM pods. We have
electrostatic meters.
Yeah,
periscopes.
So we pretty much got the gamut of everything that we can put out. And document, you know, if we get anything, and you know, try to experiment with them and things like that.
Yeah, because the more correlations you can draw, the better. the better
Sure.
you are. You can't just use one device and say, okay, there's, this device is reacting or responding.
Right.
I mean, there is, you can't substantiate it with just that. So as many correlations as you can draw.
Right, and you know what? And some capture stuff, and then others don't, but you got
Right.
your backup, so.
Well, exactly. And with what Mark and Lisa just said, what we try to do, anything that we put out for public scrutiny,
Okay.
is beyond a shadow of doubt. Everybody understands it. It isn't like you have to subtitle it like it said "Get Out" or "My butt itches," what have you, right?
Yeah, you hear it, you're like, oh, it sounds like mumbling to me. Like,
Right, but you know what I'm saying? So we look at it this way. The evidence we do gather, if we think it's pertinent or relevant to the investigation, or if it's just something that's just crazy, it has to be something that's going to survive public scrutiny.
Well,
So,
And we don't
Well,
filter anything.
I don't want. I'm sorry, Mo. I don't mean to interrupt, but I think it's gotta pass our scrutiny
well,
first.
right.
okay,
Yeah.
so right, because you've got your litmus test that, hey,
Right.
this is,
Right.
if it doesn't pass this, forget it.
Well, and we have a saying: if we have any doubt whatsoever about evidence,
We throw it out.
we throw it out.
That's fine.
It
You
could,
know
it
what?
could be a legitimate piece, but if any one of us has a doubt, it goes out.
For
And you
instance,
know-
let's,
And I'm glad you said that, because I've said it before. Everybody thinks that paranormal investigators buy into the paranormal like from the get-go. And I'm like, no, we're the worst skeptics
No.
when it comes to saying this is supernatural or paranormal or haunted or whatever. Because it's like, no, you go through all your checklists of debunking it, or like you said, it's ambiguous. That could be, but it could be something else,
Yeah.
And so, because I think paranormal investigators, sometimes they get the reputation that you're willing to accept just about anything
Yeah.
as being paranormal or a ghost, when in reality, most of us are not that way at all. We try to look at like, okay, when you rule out all the rest, this is then when you got what you got left is then what you go with.
Right.
So,
well, hey,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, I was going to say with what Mark said, for instance, like we have all of the different types of monitoring equipment that we use. We will not, as a team, use personal experiences in and of themselves as proof. Let's say I'm in the room next to us right now, and something picks me up and slams me against the wall. Well, I can run in and go, oh my God, I was just slammed against the wall. Well, nobody saw it. It's not on video. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing to corroborate it. It's just a story.
It's a cool
Exactly.
story.
Cool, but it's just a
We
story.
won't be around after that, but
Yeah, I was about to say that, and that'll be like, well,
Oh no, I
See you
got
later.
many years ago. I got slapped once on an investigation.
oh,
Once.
okay, now you got to talk about that. Tell me about that. That's unusual. I'm mad you got slapped by a ghost, right? I'm only kidding.
No. I hadn't been on the team very long. I had just come over. Like you heard the history of the team I was with prior.
Right.
And the fun thing is, both teams knew each other, which was a good thing. We all knew
Okay.
each other. Anyway, so Black Hills Paranormal Investigations pulled me in. It was like my first or second investigation with them. We go to a house here in Rapid City. Anyway, the house, this family had called us because they had all kinds of crazy stuff going on. They had a fire in their basement. So it didn't burn the house down, but they gutted it. They ripped all the drywall and stuff out to redo it because all the smoke damage.
Okay.
Anyway, and the wife had suffered from all kinds of, I don't know what you want to call it.
Just medical maladies.
Right, and she was having issues, had the big bags under her eyes, and her husband were convinced that whatever was in the house was attacking her.
Okay.
And this plays into the malevolent, what you were talking
Okay.
about.
All right.
And Mark had really done his homework. We did some research, and we found the house was moved to its location in like 1902, 1903, something like that.
Okay.
And we did a little bit of history, and apparently, and there was a little bit of rumor control involved here, but the people that had moved the house and lived there, apparently the husband was a little sketchy, kind of wasn't real cool with the wife or whatever, kind of beat on her and whatnot.
Okay.
Apparently, though, and there's no record of it, she was killed and buried in the basement. Okay.
Oh.
Right. Okay, we're kind of like, cool story, but, you never know.
Uh-huh.
A couple cool things did happen, though, and actually it's on our website, and I think it's on our Facebook page, as a matter of fact. When we were in that basement, there was a slab of concrete just out of the clear blue. There was nothing attached to it.
Okay.
And right next to that's an upright, a support beam. And they had three, I don't know if you know what Romex is, that's that thick wire that has like all three, like your positive, negative, and ground.
Mm-hmm.
Three of them out. They were crimped to the post.
To the header. Yeah.
And so if you grab one and move it, all three of them would flop and carry on because they weren't connected anymore.
Okay.
But we had this on our IR camera. Anytime the current owner would walk by, only one would move. It was really weird. And now, during the investigation, that was one of the weird things. But I'm upstairs, and I decided, because our team as a whole, we do not provoke. But I went upstairs,
I
and
think
I'm
that's a good idea.
I'm full of myself, and I'm going to be all cool and whatnot. And this was the old incarnation of the team. We had a pile of us. Anyway, I'm in this room. This is the bedroom. And I was like, well, I think you're kind of yellow. And if you're, you must be really cool because you're picking on women. Why don't you pick on the guy? And, like, immediately after that, we have it on audio. You hear, I get slapped on the forehead.
I was about to say, he slapped you on the forehead?
Yes. And another investigator who's no longer on the team screams like a girl and hauls the other way. And I'm left standing in the room going, ow, that kind of stung. But
you know what? That almost sounds like old-time stuff, like, where you hit somebody, like, smack them up the head, like...
Like vaudeville almost, yeah.
Yeah, uh-huh.
But that's about the only violent thing that's ever happened to me. Well, we did have rocks thrown at us. We'll talk about that one later.
Yeah.
Weren't you in shock? Weren't you, like...
I didn't know whether to... Oh, how do I do this without cussing?
He just didn't know what to do.
I just kind of stood there like, are you kidding, really? Did that just happen? And by that time, all you heard was the other investigators hauling ass the other way.
Hey, can you imagine if something would have happened to
Well, it's interesting because it played in with
the claims
that we had been told about, and how you talked about, if we ever run into malevolent,
right.
Spirits or whatever. And I would say that was probably one of those instances because, and then there was one just recently that we did in Belfouche that we can't divulge the location or the name, but we could discuss that one. But yeah, I mean, we've had those little instances because I always believe that if you get smacked in the forehead like Mo got smacked,
wow.
I mean, I see that as, okay, they're either like really trying to get your attention, or they're just trying to get you out of there.
Well, especially after what he said, it was like a direct response to what you said.
I mean, and I don't know. I kind of find it. I guess you'll know about me was on the team. I'm the biggest skeptic. I'm a huge skeptic.
Until it happens to him, then he changes his mind immediately. It's amazing.
I know, but even then, when something happens to me, then even like later, like a week later, I'll like tell these guys, call Mo and say, "Oh, did that really happen, dude? Come on,
Yeah.
But yeah, we had those little incidents of just, because I would call that probably something that, I don't know if you want to call it malevolent or a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
Malevolent would be the right word.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that. I felt like somebody just went up and like, dude, get out of here.
You
kind of leave me alone.
and you got
it. Exactly.
And whatever happened to that family, did they...
They moved.
Oh, okay. That was their solution. Yeah, I know a lot of them. You think it's like, forget it. They got it. This like, forget it. We're not even going to try to work this out.
Out of Dodge. They moved to a different town. Didn't even stay in Rapid City.
A lot of them do that. And do you think that lady was buried there in the basement, or was just
I have no idea.
Because it makes you think: did he kill her and bury her in the basement, or she just?
That was the rumor, basically. But we don't know that to be fact. I mean, it's a cool story. Once again, wow, super cool, very interesting. But can we prove that? No, we can't.
And that's the thing. Goes back to the investigations, like in the brothels. We would hear, people would tell us different stories about the location, about things that happened up there. To like a little kid, was murdered by one of the Johns.
Right.
And then, during my research, I go back to early Deadwood history, and I researched everything, and there was no mention at all. And I'll tell you this much, and this is what I believe. I don't care how hard or mean or rough and tumble a town is, when it comes to killing children, I'm going to guarantee you
there's a
that those
somewhere.
boys would have went crazy, and they would have went after whoever killed a child.
Yes.
And I don't care who you are. And so that was just one of the stories that helped to build the fabric of some of the the things that go on in Deadwood.
Yes.
Because we talk about the stories, the big stories that people tell. If they aren't true, then they ought to be. And that's where you hear, a lot of people will say that. Like, well, if it's not true, then it ought to be, because just the way Deadwood is.
And speaking of Deadwood, Mark knows it because of his research. We have found the first documented ghost story from Deadwood.
Yeah.
Really? Which is?
Well,
I'll let him explain it. It's kind of funny.
It was back in the 1800s. It was actually the newspaper out there had written a news article on it. In fact, the newspaper man himself actually went to the location and described seeing the ghostly figures of the lady that was killed and the man that killed her walking up the steps. And it's in the newspaper account. And what's interesting about Deadwood is they've got that account, and then they've also got another account of a female investigation group back in like the 1880s, 1890s.
Okay.
Actually, during the big spiritualism movement.
Right, exactly.
And actually women of Deadwood who actually were going out and trying to investigate ghosts in Deadwood.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah, it really is.
And that was like literally for them, that was recent, like, just a couple years ago. It wasn't like us looking into something that's 100 and 150 years old.
Well, yeah, because the first people that came into Deadwood, into Deadwood Gulch was in September of 1875.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when they started, finding the first gold there. So that was very, very recent stuff that was going on there. So, yeah, I mean, it's really, I think it's fascinating.
It is.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And have you, I'm going to assume, have you guys have gone to the Mount Moriah Cemetery, or do they allow people in there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, people still get buried there, as a matter of fact. One thing, Black Hills Paranormal Investigations, we don't do is we don't investigate cemeteries.
Okay.
And two reasons. Number one, it's I'm not a religious guy, but it's kind of like hallowed ground. You got to be respectful. There's people's bones that are buried in
Final
there.
resting place.
Right.
Also, yeah, what would you look like? We'd look like a bunch of teenagers running around on Friday night, running through the cemetery, scared, trying to scare yourself.
Well, and the reason sometimes why I ask that is, well, I don't know. I don't know that setting, but, and I was going to ask you whether the cemetery, or have you ever gone to a place where there's no electrical, like you're not in a building, so you don't have any type of,
like 4
you
Mile.
can't pick up on an EMF, there's no electricity running through it.
Yes.
Where you've gotten some type of activity.
Yes. Well, real quick, here's something just for an FYI. Like you were talking about Mount Moriah.
Right.
Now, originally, all the people in Deadwood were buried in an area called Ingleside, which is down the hill from Mount Moriah.
Okay.
So, as the town expanded, they disinterred these people and moved them up the hill.
Okay.
To this day, still, people that live in Ingleside in that neighborhood, when they're working like building a retaining wall, a skull or bones might roll out for something.
Yeah.
And that just happened here a few years back.
Yeah.
And they actually had a big funeral and everything and moved the guy up to Mount Moriah. It was really cool.
In fact, that's going to be on TV.
It's going to be on, is it PBS?
SDB.
Yeah,
or
PBS,
whatever.
yeah.
I think May 22nd.
Yeah.
It's they have archaeologists and stuff that are studying the remains of this guy that they found a couple years ago.
Okay.
And so a funeral from like what they would do back then. They had the
Wow.
Hearse with a horse drawn, yes.
Oh, yeah.
And they carried him up to Mount Moriah the old-fashioned way.
Oh, like
So-
with a hearse and all that stuff?
Yeah.
The old,
cool.
what is it called, Moriah wagon?
Yeah, they used one of the original ones from Deadwood, which is super, super cool.
And you know what? Like 2 nights ago, now that you brought that up, out here, I live like in the south end of Dade County. I'm like in the area between Miami proper and the entrance into the Florida Keys. Okay. So a couple of nights ago, because I do live stream like on Facebook and on Twitter, I was out to this place where in 1915 they built the first Homestead Grammar School. Okay. Now prior to that, Henry Flagler's laying this the railroad. He's building the railroad that goes all the way into the Keys, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Now the rumor was that of course all these places they attract a bunch of workers, just like any railroad. Especially this is turn of the century. What happens is there was no down south. There was no actual cemetery. You had to go to the city of Miami. what happened is all these workers that died, or a lot of them got killed in accidents, if they didn't have a family to ship them back to, there was this area, which is a grammar school now. I was out there a couple of nights ago, where they basically made an unofficial cemetery. Okay, and plus there was no embalmers either. So what they were doing is they were just putting these people in there that no money, no family to ship them back to, and just dumping them there. So supposedly the story is that in 1914, the doctor that owns this piece of land, which was like a 5-acre site, even though supposedly these burials took place on the southeast, end of the property, he tells everybody, because he turned over part of it for this grammar school for 1915, and I guess he wanted to develop the surrounding area for houses. So he tells everybody, "Oh yes, I've moved the bodies supposedly to some place in Naranja." And I was out there, and I'm like, "Yeah, sure, this guy moved all the bodies." Especially if these, first of all, they didn't have caskets. I imagine most of them, they weren't embalmed. Because back then, even a simple casket cost you sometimes about $100, which was a lot. These people were probably wrapped in a shroud or something, or a sheet.
Thrown in the dirt, thrown in the hole.
Opened up, exactly, and no crosses, no nothing. Okay, it was like an unofficial cemetery. So that's why I'm saying, I know that even though a lot of times official records will say, yes, and of course he wanted to develop that area. He's not he made it known. Yeah, I moved them somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I've gotten reports of people, seeing like shadows and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, of course, there's probably some bodies still left.
Yeah.
Have you investigated out there?
I started doing it like a couple of nights ago. I went out there because like when you and I physically went out there, and at night. And that's the thing, it's at an intersection because it's on the southeast corner of a 5-acre lot. So it's got the street here and the street here. And the original school was there, and eventually it was turned, they kind of modernized part of it, and they turned it into a regular school. So I was out there at that southeast corner, but it's a little bit difficult when you've got a street here and basically...
Right.
Well,
I wondered if you went out there, if you took any equipment, and if so, did you get anything on it?
No, I went out there more than anything at night just to check it out. I just went out with my camera, and I streamed a little bit, and sometimes I go out there just to physically look to see, like, what am I looking at? And I'm thinking, okay, I got a street. Because one thing is, when you actually go there, you realize, okay, I've got to deal with car noises because I've got a street here, and I've got a street here.
And it's funny you bring that up, being we live out here in the Black Hills. I'm kind of a mountain bike enthusiast.
Right.
So I'm up on trails and stuff all around the hills up here, and I'm betting I'm going to 5 or 6 times going down trails and stuff, it'll open up into a little pasture, and I have found actually grave sites.
Yeah, wow. Can you imagine?
Yeah, because it was a homestead 100 or so years ago. Of course, the homestead's long gone, but they buried their loved ones there when they lived there. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of interesting and kind of sad at the same time.
Yes.
It's like we found James Franco's in Spokane.
Right.
There's nobody else around. Right. It's just the one plot and nothing.
Well, they say out here in the Black Hills that history is hidden in plain sight.
I'm sure.
All you need to do is look and you'll see it.
It's interesting, to say the least.
Let me tell you that. I was born and raised in Miami, and until recently, as a matter of fact, I'm getting the show together. I found out about because remember, back like around the turn of the century, everything was segregated, and I had never heard of it. It was through pure research. An African American cemetery, okay, that the last burial was like in 1955.
Wow.
And when you go out, there's only like 5 tombstones left, mostly because the people were so poor that they would just put the wooden crosses, which of course there's nothing left by now. But the only guys that were 2 privates that served in World War I in the 20th Engineers. As a matter of fact, I did find their cards through the military that they were out in France, and a couple of other ones that they kind of like. One of them, you could tell they carved it by hand. When people like carve the names and stuff by hand. And the rest, some others are like the shallow indentations where it falls in.
Exactly.
There's a real interesting story connected to that. Out here, there's what they call coral rock, which means to dig a hole, you got to take out a pickaxe and pick away.
Yeah.
So what happens is, this land, there was a guy who had a lumber company, right? So this plot of land, it's owned by the Masons, and he tells them, hey, will you let my black employees bury their dead there? And they said, okay. So they would charge $25, whatever. But it would take men 2 days to dig the hole for a grave. Well, there was this one guy, his sister-in-law had passed away, and he knew how to work with dynamite. And he ended up becoming the grave digger because in 6 hours with dynamite, he was able to dig the hole that would take men 2 days to do.
Nice.
So he did it from 1919 till at least 1955.
Wow.
That was his job. He was the grave digger, and you have to pay him $5. And I was thinking, okay, if you hear the dynamite going off, somebody's getting buried, but or I don't know if later on they were kind of, because you need really heavy machinery. Even now, you need a backhoe or something to be able to make a significant hole. But what I'm saying is, I'd never heard of this place till recently, through research. And I went out there, and it was incredible because you still see where all the graves are. Well, where it falls in a little bit.
Yeah.
And, like you said, it's like right there in front of you. I think you just have to know where to look.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, this area is not even as remote, I'm sure, as some of the surrounding area where you guys are at.
Well, Florida's got a rich and very old history too,
Sure.
versus out here. I mean, of course, you have the natives, but since the 1500s, Florida's had the Spanish, French, and
Pensacola was the first settled. Pensacola is actually the oldest. St. Augustine is the oldest contiguously colonized city. But Pensacola now holds that title as the oldest city.
What's really funny is that I was doing this other thing was that people didn't realize that they had these cowboys. That's what they call it. Wow, they got that name of the crackers because they used to crack their whips to drive the cows from the 1700s, including a lot of people always think of the cow herding and cowboys like out in Texas and further west, and no, there was a version of it down here. That's why they called them cracker cowboys. So, yeah, I know what you mean. But, and it's really, that's what I'm saying, that there's a lot of people that sometimes, even when you get people that sometimes they have unexplained manifestations, whether it's on the properties or you have a group of houses and everybody's scratching their head like, where's this coming from? Sometimes you just really never know what's happened on that land.
Exactly.
Before they decided to develop it.
Well, and that's funny you should bring that up. This couple years ago, we're investigating a place on the east side of Rapid City.
Yep.
And this house was literally 5 years old. In fact, the whole neighborhood was 5 years old. Brand spanking new neighborhood. And this lady had called us in, and we went in, and she had the typical, I hate to say this, but it's typical claims. We hear footsteps, we hear voices, yeah. Because, as an investigator, the claims a lot of them are the same.
Yes.
So we go in, and of course, BHPI, we're not going in to prove a haunting. We're going in the complete opposite. We're going to try to find reasonable reasons why you don't have a haunting.
Exactly.
So we go into this place. It was crazy.
You were like,
okay. We got all kinds of audio, and Mark, the skeptic that he is, for instance, there's a stairwell. You go downstairs to their basement, and right under the stairs there's a little door. It's like a crawl space, and it was carpeted, and it's beautiful, really pretty. So Mark goes, we're going to throw an audio recorder in here. Okay, we do. We come back. We're reviewing stuff, and we get a southern female with a southern accent, clear as a bell, saying, "I'm coming."
oh.
Oh,
Yeah.
exactly. We got other audio that said, "I don't want to die." We've got cards being shuffled in the basement. We have no clue where this is coming from.
Okay.
Oh, there's no history for this neighborhood, because it's a brand spanking new neighborhood. Now, was it part of a trail coming into Rapid City in the Black Hills? It might have been. Might have there been maybe a homestead there at one time, but we don't know. But we really walked in going, there's going to be nothing here anyway. It's a brand new home. And that's a lot of things that people don't understand. Just because something's old and creepy looking does not necessarily mean something's going on. because here we are in brand new construction, for lack of better terms, and all this crazy stuff is happening.
Yes.
Everything was documented back then. Either.
Exactly, that's true.
Yeah.
That what?
Not everything was documented back then.
Oh, no, that's what I was going to say. More often than not, it wasn't documented. You know,
Well,
and even if whether it was a homestead back then, you know, everybody always thinks also of brothels, you know, being like part of a hotel or the casino or the saloon. But sometimes they had those brothels, which were basically on a farm, which was, you know.
Right, or stage stop,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Well, and you have to realize that back in the day when Deadwood started, and a lot of these little mining towns in the Black
Yes.
Hills itself, when they started, they were illegal camps.
Yes.
The United States government was responsible, per the treaty, the Laramie Treaty, to go in and get these miners and pull them out.
Wow.
You know, they come in, arrest them, and pull them out. They had started up Custer, and the city Custer, and the Army had to come in and literally arrest them all and drag them out. And they missed Deadwood because it was just, you know, if you were probably to see Deadwood back in the day, it's
It just
just
was
in this
intense.
little, it's in this little tiny gulch area where
Okay.
they never could get into. They used to have to lower wagons down into the bottom of the gulch with ropes just to get wagons down into the gulch area, down into Deadwood itself.
Until they established the trailheads
Right.
and all the things that they did.
But everything here was illegal, so there was probably not a lot of documentation and
Oh, I'm sure.
going on. So yeah, I mean that's like what Deb said. You know, it's just a lot of times we start looking and you just can't find any information.
Well, wasn't the Native American, it was their land, but
Yes,
didn't
right.
they say it was sacred, that it was
Mhm.
something
Yeah.
special about
Yeah, the Black Hills itself
But-
is sacred to the Native Americans.
Right, but Native Americans didn't write their history down. It was all
Right,
by
it's oral.
right.
What tribe is out there? What is it, the Sioux or?
The Sioux nowadays, the Sioux,
Lakota.
yeah, with the Cheyenne.
Cheyenne.
Well, see, wait, before the Lakota, we had the Cheyenne out here.
Uh-huh.
The Arikarir, there's 3 or 4 different tribes. The Sioux originally came from Minnesota.
Okay.
They came out this way because, of course, the white folks are, you know, scarfing up the land,
Right.
expanding farther west, and it ended up pushing the Sioux out this way.
Okay.
Dakota, Dakota.
Dakota. There's 3 or 4 different spin-offs. Spin-off's the wrong word, but sub-tribes of the
Right,
overall
right.
nation.
Mm-hmm.
Or Lakota is what they actually are. Sioux is a French word, but
Right. So let me ask you, and I'm curious about this. And Mark, you might have the answer since I know you did a lot of research into Deadwood. About, I think one of the most colorful characters is that guy Swearingen. That guy.
Gym Theater.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, the Gem Theater, exactly.
Right.
And I read that when you were describing that crackdown that they were having because of the territories and all that with the government, that basically, even though he was really not a nice guy, far from it, that he knew how to, I guess, make friends or deal with the right people, and that's why he got spared from what was going on with a lot of these places being shut down. Is that accurate or no?
Well, yeah. I mean, you probably see where he manipulated people. He there's one story that basically he and Seth Bullock, the first sheriff
Right.
in Wood, actually stood at Wall Street and Main Street, and they drew a line in the street, and Swearingen just basically said, okay, everything on this side of the line, I'll deal with it and keep here and keep it out of that area. Everything on the other side of the line, Sheriff, is yours. He says, I'll make sure I keep my, all the debauchery down here, and you can keep all the good people of Deadwood up here. And so, yeah, I'm sure that, and what's interesting about Swearingen was, he by no means was a good guy.
Right.
I mean, he was into basically human trafficking.
yeah.
He would
Right.
he would go get women and bring them out under the guise of, working in my fine hotel in Deadwood, and then he'd put them to work at the cat house.
Right.
And-
That's what I heard, that he got women out there and then basically, like, now, like that they do now that you got to work off your
right.
travel
And he
expenses.
would say that, listen, if they wanted to leave, he wouldn't let him. He said, well, I'll just put you in jail because you owe me all this money for you getting for you. So how much I had to spend on you to get you here. So they were basically kidnapped and brought into a life of
kind of like indentured servitude.
But getting back to the fact that he was bringing in big name people back in the day, actors and orchestras and traveling troops of actors and stuff with plays. And it was funny because he actually had, I don't remember the name of the play that was going on, but it was one that was fairly well known back in the day.
Okay.
That he had in the Gem Theater, and all the good people in Deadwood, no matter what, they would not cross that line to go down into the Badlands area of Deadwood. So what they did was they got a group of people together and asked him if he could rent out that troupe so that they could play in the theater, to bring them up into the good area of Deadwood so that all the good people didn't have to go down to the bad side.
And with what he said, this is really funny. If you ever get a chance to go to Deadwood, obviously it's a very small community. But where Main Street is, exactly what Mark's talking about, there's a street called Wall Street.
Okay.
Crosses the main drag. From Wall Street north, that's where all the decadence and debauchery took place.
Okay.
From south was where all of the respectable people, the churches, the temperance movements and things took place. And it's really interesting, if you know the history, when you just stand there in town, you're looking going, oh, well, that's over here and this is over there and whatnot. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, did they call it the Badlands, like you said, because of that?
Yes. It had nothing to do with the Badlands that are east of Rapid.
They had I don't know what, I'm guessing something like over 70 saloons.
It was just ridiculous.
At one time.
It'd be my dream, but that's a different story.
And Main Street and just Deadwood itself isn't that big. So
sorry, beverage break. Sorry, beverage
it's okay,
break.
Don't worry about it. On the contrary. So I heard I was that guy. Is it true? And Mark, I'm going to ask you again, maybe, but if you guys that when Bullock came in to try to get that job as the sheriff, that Wyatt Earp also wanted that job, and that they kind of had like a moment there, like. And basically, Bullock kind of like told him, leave town because this is my job.
Well, it is interesting, but there is some truth that Wyatt Earp did, in fact, spend a little bit of time in Deadwood.
Okay.
And he got a job, I guess, chopping firewood.
Oh, you want? Okay.
Exactly. I know, not very glamorous, but hey, you got to pay the bills,
But yet, some people were thinking, well, here we got this guy that's, that's a kind of a lawman and stuff, and I think he was probably still in the process of building up his reputation and whatnot. But there is, you will hear some people talk that maybe Seth Bullock had a talk with them and pretty much just said, listen, you know what, pal, this town ain't big enough for both of us. Well, pretty much. This town isn't big enough for the both of us.
Right, yeah, that's exactly exactly. One of us has got to go and it's not going to be me.
Yeah, so the rumor is that, Seth Bullock had a discussion with them and said it's probably the best thing that you just kind of, when you're done chopping your wood and everything, you just might as well just move on. Because, you know what, I got this. And so, actually, Wyatt Earp's reign or stay in Deadwood was very short-lived.
I can imagine.
And then what was also interesting, though, is even before that, Wild Bill Hickok, when he came into town, a lot of people seem to think that, here he is, he's, this great guy gunfighter and everything. He had actually come into town. He was almost ready. He was about ready to be arrested down in Cheyenne.
Yeah.
For vagrancy.
Really?
Yeah, because he's you know, people don't seem to realize this. When he came out here, he's getting a little bit older.
Yeah,
kind of long in the tooth.
Right, and so he had jumped in with
Charlie Utter.
Charlie Utter.
Yeah,
Colorado Charlie Utter, and who kind of came up this way, who was actually bringing some women into town himself.
Right.
And because Charlie Utter had established a kind of a wagon train type of transportation system when he came here. So Wild Bill kind of jumped in with them, and they came into town, and then I guess Calamity Jane, she kind of
glommed on
with
the wagon train coming in.
And they all come into town. Well, truth be told, Wild Bill was actually coming into town to prospect for gold. He was looking. He had just been married.
Right.
And so he was looking to kind of say, okay, listen, you know what? I need to kind of
go on the straight and narrow.
Try to make some money, and now I have a wife. But digging in the dirt for gold is hard work.
I'm sure.
And
even as a hobby, it's kind of a pain in the butt.
Something that he was not very much outfitted for. He was more of that law enforcement, quick gun.
Yes.
He was a gambler, so to speak. When he come in, he actually knew the guy who was running the saloon number 10. And he had actually gone to Wild Bill and said, hey, Bill, he says, you know what? It's fortuitous for me that you're in town. You know what? If you need a place to kind of hang out and have as a headquarters, use my little saloon here.
Okay.
And so that's what he did. So Wild Bill actually just decided, I'm not going to do any gold hunting or nothing. He said, I'm going to get my gold off of the gambling tables.
Uh-huh.
But what was interesting was a lot of the people in town at the time, the miners and all those people,
right,
they were looking for. They weren't happy that Wild Bill was in town.
Because of what? Because he was a gunfighter or what?
No, because he used to be a lawman. And
okay. I understand now what you mean.
So, because this was in 1876,
it was the Wild West, just like people picture.
Right. So, in other words, they're like, okay, last thing we need is a law in here.
Right.
Exactly.
And so they weren't really happy he was in, and he was pretty much, he was on his like Mo had said, he's getting long in the tooth. He was growing bald. He couldn't see very well anymore.
You know what? It's really funny when you say that because I always think of it with that shoulder length hair, so
he always had his hat on. See, if you took his hat off, it looked like Ben Franklin.
And so not everybody was real happy that he was in town.
Okay.
And he had come into town in July, it was about the end of June, July
76
of 1876, because he was shot and killed August 2nd, 1876.
Okay.
They're like 3 weeks.
Yeah, so he was only in town for 3 weeks. But
people don't know that.
But what's interesting, though, and this kind of plays into the kind of the paranormal aspect, I guess, if you will.
Okay.
He had actually written his wife a last letter, saying that he kind of felt this was his last camp.
Yep.
And that if I'm not to see you anymore, just know that I love you. The last words on my lips will be that I love you.
Wow.
And he had so confided in Charlie Utter that basically, hey, Pard, I think this is my last camp. I don't think I'm leaving here alive.
So he kind of felt that.
Like a self-prophecy, I guess, whatever you call it.
Now that you mentioned that, I'm going to ask you, because they were saying that the fact that he had his back towards the door was unusual for him.
Unusual, yes, it was.
Right.
So it almost makes you think, why would he do something?
It's almost, I think that probably to a certain extent, when he's looking for his last heydays, the life that he's been living all those years that he built his reputation on, that life now, that Wild West is slowly fading away.
Okay.
And this is basically the Black Hills, which is really interesting. We've discussed this amongst ourselves quite a bit. the Black Hills was kind of a black hole in the Wild West, where this was the last vestiges of the Wild West.
Okay.
I mean, and because everything around it, we were a kind of an island.
Okay.
That nobody knew about, because this was an Indian reservation. The Native Americans, this was their reservation.
Okay.
So it was the last vestiges of that. And so I think he was coming here to say the last hurrah, to kind of build on his.
Well, no, and you think about it, the stuff that you could do when you were younger, and all of a sudden you're realizing, you know what? I can't see myself doing this for the rest of my life.
Age is catching up.
I'm feeling that nowadays.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Where else is there to go?
Well, no, this was it.
What's after?
This was it.
Yeah, this was it.
There's nothing left.
So let me
This
ask
was
something, Mark.
final.
Do you think there's any truth to that thing that they were saying, that there was an actual romance between Calamity Jane and Wild Bill,
No.
or was it just a
No.
friendship?
We're all like,
No, that was something that she perpetuated,
And just
just
saying,
to keep relevant herself.
sure. And this is horrible for me to say because, of course, I'm so gorgeous. But if you see pictures of Calamity Jane, her face would make a runaway train take a dirt road.
right.
Just saying.
Oh, now come on.
Just
No.
saying.
So,
She was a hooker though at one point.
Well,
she didn't have a
they were
makeup artist
desperate.
then. Come on. They didn't have lighting and makeup.
That's why to keep them in the yard.
it's like, okay, I could tell that Mo is not a Calamity Jane admirer.
No.
No, but you know what? And the reason why I say that is because, she kind of like you rough around the edges. That's nice saying, but then it makes you think, maybe he did have something going on, but he just didn't want to admit it because, let's face it,
Could be. Could be. We
maybe
don't-
out on the trail you get lonely. I don't know.
Exactly.
But thank God for her,
Everybody got
though,
their
because besides her, having to be a hooker, I guess, to make ends meet.
She did.
She was also an angel. She was
Yeah,
a
that's what
nurse.
I read about her.
Yeah, she did.
She was a generous person. She was an alcoholic. She had a really bad problem with alcoholism, but at the same time, she was very, she was generous with people asked her,
Yes.
for help and stuff. So that's a good thing.
She did kind of look like a dude. Just saying.
On the facade, but I'm sure she cleaned up. She probably cleaned up nicely.
I know. I'm
Dude,
horrible.
if you wore
I
a
know.
dress, then you look like a ugly girl.
I've done that. I have worn a dress, and I'm a very ugly girl. I've tried that before.
I don't even
So
know.
let me ask you: have you guys ever run across the EVP or anything of I don't want to say famous, but of a well-known character from out there that you could actually go, hey, that's so and so, or has it always been like an unknown, source as far as the?
Who's
I mean, as far as BHPI goes,
Yeah.
We've had an EVP of someone.
someone?
We can
Oh,
identify as.
that's a hard one because you could it all depends on how you read into it. Like I was telling you the story when that crew was out here filming us, and I had that crazy thing there in the brothels. You would ask for Wild Bill. I think that's what you'd ask. But anyway, I can't remember exactly. It was either said I'm right here or I'm coming. I can't remember which one.
Okay.
I think it's right here.
yeah, but
But we don't know for sure, obviously.
Well, and you know what? It almost makes after that story that you said that he kind of had this premonition that he was going to die. It makes you think, why would he hang around? He kind of expected he was going to like.
well, you have to remember though too, is that the brothels where we were at when we got that, they didn't even exist
Okay.
during the time when Wild Bill was
well,
there.
it was a tent city.
Those
basically.
were built much later.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, they
The
were
buildings
probably
were,
built. Those buildings were probably built
1880s, 1890s, probably.
no 1894.
Because when was
I
the
think.
first big fire?
1878.
78.
Nine.
So
So those buildings were built in 1894. So those would have been built probably almost 20 years after he had been killed.
So because so basically what they would do is before building they had tents up, and then as time
Exactly.
went by, then they actually put up buildings.
Right.
And when you're in Deadwood, there are still a few businesses where you like if you're walking down the street, you can go. They have some businesses, I guess, underground, which you think is the basement, right? But that's actually the original level of Deadwood. After the big
10 feet
fires,
below.
after the big fires, they just built everything on top of everything
Right.
else.
Yes.
So, yeah.
But when you were talking about, well, how have you ever had anybody, that you knew was like famous or whatever that answered?
Right, that you say that.
But how would you even know what they sounded like? It was from 100 years ago.
Well, I guess I'm saying is like, let's say you go to a place. This is an example where they had a madam that was named Catherine, whatever, and you get an EVP that says it's Catherine or something that you're like, okay, this matches the.
But not necessarily, because you can't see who they are. They can say, they could be Happy the Hairy Dancing Clown and say, yeah, I'm Calamity, and how would you know? Yeah.
So you never.
Here's something that has nothing to do with Deadwood. This is Mark and I years back with our original group. We were investigating a place in an area. Was it Black Hawk?
Yes.
Piedmont. Yeah. Black Hawk, which means Black Hawk, South Dakota, very tiny community out here.
Okay.
It's a mobile home, actually. And we're investigating anyway, and we had a couple weird things go down, and then we come back and we review, we're going through all the audio, video, and whatnot, and we got a few captures, so we do a review with the clients. We were playing the different things that we had captured in the house, and we got an EVP.
Okay.
That's I love you.
Wow.
Now, and the lady and her mom lived there.
Okay.
And they were literally sobbing, and Mark and I are like, "Uh-oh, what have we done? What have we done?"
Right.
Come to find out that's great. They recognize that as great grandma, and we captured that in the kitchen of this little trip, and that's where Grandma hung out. She loved to cook. That was Grandma's thing.
Okay.
And I think why the only times we could actually tie like
where we
definite
right.
with something, because the client identified,
but yeah,
not us.
The client identified, and like I said, and yeah, we can't validate like you're talking about like anybody famous or something that you could validate. We've never been able to do that except for that one time, the one that Mo just explained.
Okay.
And and that was the client who validated.
Right. That if it wasn't for the client saying, "Oh, we know who that is,"
right,
you guys would have been. It would just be a great EVP, and that's it.
Exactly. But and so we never, when we play the EVPs back to our clients, we don't say, okay, this is what you're going to hear.
Right.
You're going to hear "I love you." We don't even tell them. We just say, listen to this. You can listen to it as many times as you want, but tell us what you think you hear.
Right. So there's no setup, no like.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we never put our EVPs through filters or any of that stuff. All we do is turn up the volume, and we play it raw for them. So we'll let them listen to it, and a lot of times they'll say exactly what we hear.
I didn't hear.
They'll say, "Yeah, this is what I heard." So it's,
which is absolutely the best way. If you're trying to get feedback, whether it's because they know who it is or because they've heard it before, and they'll say, "Yeah, it says whatever," and I've heard that before. And that kind of validates also for yourself. This is not an isolated,
it's
EVP.
actually kind of cool. Because when Mo and I walked away that night, after they said that they keyed in and said, "Yeah, that's Grandma's voice."
Okay.
Then and when we left, we were floored. We were like, "Holy crap! We have never had that happen to us before." Nor since.
Exactly. Because over like as an investigator, this. You'll get EVPs that are clear as a bell, but they're just kind of random. It has really nothing.
You're like, they'll say a word or something, and you're like, okay. Like one time, I had one that said lettuce. It was like,
what?
Okay, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, okay,
Oh, Lisa and I got one here a month or so back that said pizza box.
It's like, okay. And it was like, okay, I'll just put that away. Maybe at some point I'll have to get a reference on it, but of course not. It's like, there's no connection. I'm thinking.
Well, what is cool with what we do, and I'm sure you can agree, is when we do capture, be it EVPs or if like you get footsteps or something, you play it for the client going, have you heard this before? Oh, absolutely. And I hear it like in the hallway or on the stairwell. We're like, well, that's exactly where we captured it. So it's kind of a twofold purpose. It makes us think that we're not crazy, obviously, and it's validating for the client to call us in the first place.
Yes.
Like, hey, somebody else is experiencing this other than just myself. And what we do as a team, once, when things like that do happen, the fun thing is we're trying to help them, I guess, understand what's going on.
Okay.
and let them realize, or make them realize, that nothing's going to hurt them. It just is what it is. And once we go through all these steps, the neat thing is, after that, they're super cool with it. They want to invite their buddies over for beer and cards, and just wait, listen, about 11 o'clock, we're going to hear footsteps.
So let me ask you, have you ever had, though, somebody that, even though you kind of said it's okay, that they'll say, take it away. What
yes.
do you do?
There's nothing, we can't.
So what do you refer them and tell them, look, you need to then find somebody who's going to...
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. I'm not used to doing this because of how our teams operate.
This is something new for us.
This is new.
Our objective basically when we go in is just to collect whatever evidence we can collect.
Right.
Here, this is the last month or so. We it's kind of weird. This lady reached out to us, and she said she was a psychic or medium or whatever, or a medium.
Okay.
And we've had people over the years contact us, and we're like, fine, but that isn't how we play. Okay, we're going to deal with it. For some weird reason, we decided to meet with this young lady.
Okay.
Very nice lady, and we have taken her on one investigation, and I'm not going to lie, it's floored me with the things that she was able to tell us about, because we investigated it previously and then brought her in.
Okay.
And didn't tell Jack Diddley, just let her do whatever she does.
Okay.
And I was amazed. Because she was hitting on a lot of the things that we actually captured, like EVPs and, different, phenomena, like footsteps or banging doors and things like that.
Okay.
So I guess as a team, we're kind of growing because we've been open-minded skeptics, at least we said we were, but you got to be open-minded.
Sure.
And I'm trying to say, so now we're kind of expanding, and with this lady, it's pretty interesting, actually.
Well, and understand, we didn't just say, oh yeah, let's call her and then invite her to an investigation. Right. We literally spent, I don't know how many hours interviewing her and talking to her.
Right. So it was okay, we're not going to take somebody with us that's going to embarrass us.
Exactly.
And we actually, after our first meeting with her, after a couple hours, our first meeting, we left, and then we discussed it amongst ourselves, and then we wrote up some guidelines on if we do decide to utilize this person, this is how our guidelines will be, and they're very restrictive. And as far as we tell her nothing about the location to be investigated,
other than the town, so she can meet us at a central location,
and she knows nothing about it. Nobody contacts her. Nobody talks to her about it. We pick her up. We take her to the location. We do she does not go inside or interact with any of the clients.
Okay.
What we do is we follow around with 2 or 3 of our investigators. We videotape it.
Okay.
It's about 45 minutes, and we follow her through the home, videotaping it. Then we come out, and then that's when she can interact with the client and then, discuss stuff. But we keep everything to the point that where there's no way possible that she's going to know anything about the location.
As blind as we possibly can be, for lack of better.
Especially if it's a residential.
Right.
If it's a known location, then it's going to be a little tougher. But at least we know that in a residential thing, and
odds are she's not going to know.
She's not going to know anything about it.
Right. No, I know what you're saying. That you yourself have put up all these things, so it's okay, if whatever she tells us, it's not because we gave her the information ahead of time.
Exactly.
Right. And she's actually, when we discussed and had our meetings with her, she was actually very upfront and open about it, saying that she goes, listen, I don't want to know anything.
Yeah.
She goes, I want nothing to know about anything to do with anything about your investigation prior to. She goes, I'll show up and I'll walk through, but I don't want you guys, if I start asking questions about something, I don't want you guys going into deep, explanations, a yes or no. But she goes, I don't want anything else. And so, like we were talking, we're kind of exploring. We're
right.
Let me tell you something. It's a good idea because it's true. You get, you'll take somebody out there that sometimes your equipment might not get any type of reading, and they're coming in with something. It's everything's not foolproof, whether it's the equipment or if you take a psychic.
And we've even said, listen, we know not everybody's going to be 100%. Even she said that. She goes, I'm not going to be 100%.
She's still learning, as a matter of fact, which really impresses me, because she tells us, she goes, like Mark was going to say, she goes, I'm not 100% all the time.
Yeah.
She goes, I don't know what I'm getting. If she gets a vibe or a feeling or whatever you want to call it, she goes, it might be about location. It might be about Mark. Right. She doesn't know. She's still learning how to what word, focus or determine or whatever you want to call it. I don't.
She's in training still.
Right.
But that,
what? That's good though. That's exactly how you learn. I hate to say it, but
right.
Yeah.
You develop your skills that way.
Yeah, but we're as a group, we're really, really skittish about that, because we've always been. We're so adamant that we don't like to use paranormal means to investigate the paranormal. We want to use scientific means to investigate the paranormal. Right. Keep a skeptical mind about it.
Sure.
And I guess even with her, you kind of put up that wall, because I think for us it's kind of like, it's just like any other piece of equipment.
Right. Using it as a tool. It's kind of mean, but.
Let's test this piece of equipment and see how well it works.
Well, and see, this is the thing, obviously she's a human being, so she, you can only go by what,
sure,
what she's saying. But, you guys have said it yourself. You guys have walked into rooms that you immediately felt in your body.
Exactly, yes.
That there's something in here, or something's different than maybe out in the hallway. And you can't, there's no way for you to prove it,
Right.
So that's what I'm saying, that even though you can't quantify it when a psychic's telling you something, if you run across somebody that's good, they can be very valuable in a team, let me tell you. Especially after you've proven like what you guys are doing, that she gives you good information.
And what I'm hoping is, because we've already decided there's an investigation we have, like we were talking about earlier, it's coming up here in a few weeks. We're going to bring her with us.
Okay.
What would be super, super cool is, like you said, like, okay, we walk into a room, you feel something kind of weird. Of course, we can't identify it. And she's like, well, it's Aunt Martha or whoever. And then we run in there with like your K2, millimeter, tri-field, whatever.
Right.
And that boy's alarming after she said, yeah, it's in the corner over there.
Right.
That would be super cool, because that's like proof positive for me.
Well,
she's picking up on it, and we can document it with some kind of monitoring equipment. If that makes sense.
Of course, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And have you guys, I know that you're the skeptics, which is good, but have any of you had the experience that you felt after you went back home, like, somebody came home with me?
That has happened to me a couple of times. I had a couple of antiques, 2 different times antiques.
Okay.
That I purchased, and I had visitors with me for a while.
See? Yeah.
In fact, Mark, our team, we investigated his house.
Oh, you did?
Yes, we
did. They actually did.
Yeah. And what was it? Was it after a certain case, or you have no idea what the origin was?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you.
Wasn't it after our first bout at the Opera House? I think it was.
I don't know. It could have been. I don't remember exactly. But it was just like we were just having some weird stuff, footsteps, noises out in the kitchen, the typical, claims of activity.
But we downstairs in your basement, we did get the EVP that said, I love it here.
Well, oh my God, you're kidding.
That was the bedroom.
He does have a nice house.
He does have a really nice house. Yes, he does.
But even Scott, one of our other members, hasn't he mentioned that too?
Yeah, and then of course my wife, she's in the other room over here, but I don't know if anything follows home. We have on occasion, a couple times, like in our home, we've had random doors just slam. We don't know why, and then you go down the hall, there's no doors that are shut. You just hear a slamming door.
Like, what's going to be slamming?
Exactly. We don't know. Now, did something follow us home? I don't know.
Yeah.
But can it happen? I don't see why it couldn't, if all this stuff is in fact real. Why
you hear that a lot of people like that. You'll get these noises, like you said, door slamming, but there's actually nothing. It's just the actual noise, the sound.
Like a residual sound, exactly.
You hear people saying, well, I'll be in a room and I'll hear something crash in the other room. Like, you think, hey, I'm going to go in there and things are destroyed. and everything is perfect.
And that's happened to us before too. At investigating on different locations, that's happened. And it does. It sounds like all the bookcase and everything in the room's been ripped down, and you run in there, absolutely nothing. Everything's pristine. Nothing's been touched.
And I don't know what that is, because a lot of people. Have you guys run across and the reason I want to ask you is that over here in Florida, nobody has a basement. At least in the southern part of Florida, because it's too difficult to dig the hole, and if not, you hit the water table or whatever. Do you guys find that there's more stuff or activity going on in basements than the rest of the house?
There's more spiders in the basements here. Ask Mark.
I take it he's not the first through the door of the basement.
Lisa, it's usually Lisa and Deb and Leanne, the three girls on our team, because they're shorter.
It's usually darker, but I haven't found any greater activity in the basement.
I think it's more up in the attics. It seems like more in the closets, like the dark.
It's kind of weird. Has been times when you're investigating and you get a few hits, like it might be a K2, an EMF detector, and it almost seems like you're following something. Okay. And it almost seems like it tries to hide. And as you're chasing it might go to a closet area or the attic or something. We haven't got a lot in basements. Basements are cool because they're cool looking and creepy. But
here's the really neat thing about a basement, okay? Because when you're on any other level, you always have chances of contamination.
Right. That's true.
So when you're in a basement, unless there's an intense or a heavy power source, when you get a hit, there's something going on because there's not a lot of chance for contamination down there.
So when you get something like that.
Exactly.
And you know, I've had that experience where you sometimes, like, it's almost like if there's anybody there, they're trying to, like, to duck and cover, like they want to get out of the way.
Exactly. And I think maybe in the 10 years we've been investigating, speaking of that, I think we might have gotten the quintessential get out one time. We did get one with Scott, though. We were investigating an opera house in the Black Hill, Leeds, South Dakota. We actually it was a very forlorn voice. Scott was on a stage doing an EVP session by himself, and you hear his voice go home.
Oh, my God, you're kidding.
It was like pleading, like, please go home, leave me alone. It was super funny.
And he gets hit more than anybody else.
Yeah.
You're always getting hit.
Oh, really?
Touched. Yeah, touched.
Yeah.
Well, we love...
It's mean because we're teasing him because he's not here.
Yeah, we love Scott, but it's almost... Scott's like one of those guys that, like, shh, you smell that?
Or here in town.
But, yeah, and then he's like, oh, my shirt was just tugged on or something. But, yeah, I mean... It's all in good fun, though.
Even our medium friend that we just met, she even said that to him. She's like, wow, you get touched an awful lot.
we think it's just wishful thinking.
Exactly.
It's like, yeah, well, there's always that target member who gets, like, the extra attention.
But he is fun to scare.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, he's the one. Is that the one in the team that's like...
Marlene, he's a fantastic investigator, but he's wound so tight.
Yeah,
and it'll be funny, Mark, and just stand in a doorway, not hiding. He's not jumping out and going boo. And Scott will walk by and just essentially crap himself all of a sudden because he sees Mark
standing there. He just starts karate chopping the air. Like,
you know what? It's really famous. I remember one time I had this girl. I used to do every once in a while I would work with her team, but she was in another county. And she was telling me she had gone in with another a little bit further up Central Florida, and they were doing a museum. And I think the museum was a 2-floor or two. Anyway, they were in there, and it was after hours, of course. And she says, we always make sure nobody's ever by themselves, like on that floor. And they had a team member who she hadn't gone out that much. And the times that they had gone out, nothing had really happened. Well, supposedly this girl, she's standing in a room, and she's within line of sight of another member who's like right down the hallway in another room. And apparently later on, of course, somebody tapped her on the shoulder, like from the back. Like tap, tap, tap. Like she wasn't standing next to anything. Well, this girl lost it. She hyperventilated. They had to almost carry her out of the building. The whole... Obviously, she didn't come back. But
sure.
What I'm saying is that some people just, when they get that reality check moment, that's it. It's over for them. Because apparently from what she told me, I mean, retold that she very clearly felt that tap, tap, tap on the back of her shoulder.
Sure.
And there was the guy that was looking at, I guess he looked at her when she started, and she was like, no, she was standing in the middle of the room. There was nothing around her where she could have bumped into it. And
like when I got slapped. Same
yeah, exactly. When you got slapped on the forehead. And she lost it. They had to end the investigation and everything because she wouldn't go back into the museum, and that was it. It wasn't really nothing horrible. It was just you got tapped hard on the back of your shoulder. So I know what you mean. But at least your team member, he stays around.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And with that being said, every October we work with Deadwood History.
Okay.
The historic Adams House. It's a big mansion in Deadwood. It's a fascinating story as far as the owners and whatnot. And they call them paranormal tours.
Okay.
It's a little different than your typical haunted tour, where you walk around with a guide and you go, oh, there's a ghost in that closet, and we saw Satan over here, and whatever. What we do is we take the groups through. They use all of our equipment. They are physically investigating with us. Okay? And you get people that come in that are trying to poo-poo on it, saying we're a bunch of just charlatans and whatnot.
Okay.
And we had a gal, it was this past year. She came in and she thought we were just a load of baloney. And and she was on my tour. She hadn't been in there. We haven't been in the house literally 10 minutes. And we're in an area of the house, the library, the house, because it's a big mansion.
Okay.
If anybody's in here, can you knock?
I love it. I love it. I love it.
She throws her hands up. She goes, that's it. I am out of here. And he's a skeptic. And of course, these poor people, they're paying money to do this. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of weird, but the truth is stranger than fiction.
Yes.
And they expect, I guess, people to rip your face off and drag you down the stairs. And it's something as innocuous as like a knock.
Oh, yeah, but that's enough.
Exactly. It scares the living bejesus out of them.
Oh, no, that's what I always say. Thank you, Hollywood, because Hollywood makes you think that, everything is like flying furniture and,
right.
Really people with, solid black eyes, all that crap. And it'd be like, if that was the reality of it, I would not still be doing this.
Yeah, if it was like that,
we're done.
We're done.
It'd be like, that's it. It's over that.
I would so like to try this. Like like I said, we work Deadwood History every Halloween, October, Halloween area time. I would so like on a group, but we can't because we don't know these people. You got the people that come in that we give the tours for.
Right.
I would love just all of a sudden to get your eyes real big and just take off, just for fun to see what people would do. But obviously, that's not what we're about. And that's not what these tours.
I think that would be great. I love that.
That would be hysterical.
Probably have people falling down the stairs.
People will get injured. Yeah.
Throw people out.
Let me ask you something. You guys haven't done that? Did you hear that? Hey. Yeah. Or how they. I'm not going to specify certain shows that it's like. Did you hear that? Oh my God! Yeah.
I'm even better. Dude. It went through my body, dude.
Yeah.
Run.
Yeah, I mean,
bro. We can't crack on those people because we did the Halloween special. Yeah, for the Scott. Scott looks like a fruitcake guy.
Yeah, but you love that.
But
yeah.
Your hair would be like this if you wanted.
No, my hair doesn't do that.
You know what would be funny though? You try stuff like that, and you probably have triple the amount of people because it'd be good to go, oh my God, yeah, they're like,
oh yeah, sure. Oh, you would. Yeah. But no, the bad thing, like I was talking about the Adams house, it's a very historic location. All of the furniture and all of the trappings inside that home are original to that home.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Right?
It's like a museum. It is.
It's a living museum, basically.
So yeah, they got to be really careful about the stuff that goes on in there.
Yeah, because we've been doing this for years now. We could have a lot of fun in a bad way.
Rose might not appreciate it.
Yeah.
There's even cookies there from
1934.
1930s, yeah.
Yeah, but they have
cookies. They're still there.
Wow.
That is super. That's my favorite part of the entire home.
And I do have to mention this, that those tours that we give, we do not make any money off of anything we do.
It's very nice of you guys.
All that money goes to Deadwood History for the upkeep of the historic locations there. So
because they've got like a section or an area where, or is it that one specific house?
I think the whole town is designated as a national history.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. Okay.
So,
And I imagine that, that. Let me ask you, and the reason is because down here wouldn't have much of a season. It's either hot or hotter. Do you guys ever see any type of difference in reports or your findings depending on what the weather is like, as far as snowing or spring or summer?
well, I think it probably has to do with more activity cases that we get.
Well,
One
yeah.
part, though, it is kind of difficult for us to do investigations of buildings like in Deadwood, for instance, during the summer because it's tourist time.
Okay, right. So you got people running around all over the place, huh?
Right.
As a former case manager, I do know, and I think you and I talked about this earlier. It's kind of weird, but it seems like late winter, early spring, like as far as requests for investigations amp up, and then of course during Halloween time, everybody thinks their house is
Right,
haunted.
yeah, because it's Halloween.
But usually summertime is kind of like, it's kind of real mellow. But I think around here, and it's the same in Florida, because, the weather's nice. It doesn't get dark till 10, 11 o'clock at night. So people are at the lakes and doing whatever.
Right.
Okay.
But when you're in the wintertime, you're home all the time. It gets dark at, 3:30, 4 o'clock at night.
Really?
And so you can,
Wow.
yeah. That's not even funny.
Yeah.
But you can sit there at home and you're just kind of, you're stuck in your home. So you hear all kinds of weird stuff. And
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say. That and that's exactly what I was thinking. I'm thinking, if you've got you guys in the wintertime, because you've got that snow, so people are spending a lot more time indoors because,
exactly.
my dog here's having a moment. This is the you're just there, so you're going to hear, like you said,
It's called meth. No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We're having a problem here with that too, so I'm just kidding. I'm from
okay,
Florida. Oh, actually, I moved from Florida, so.
But no, and because over here, like I said, it's like doesn't really matter one way or the other. There's no comparison to anything else as far as the seasons are concerned. So let me ask you: have you guys ever gone to a place? And I know I asked you kind of before, where there's nothing left. Maybe there was a town once upon a time, and maybe you've got a couple of timbers, so there's no electricity, no nothing. Have you ever captured, especially like residual, imprints where there's nothing there now? Have you guys ever gone out to a site like that?
There's a place outside of Custer, South Dakota.
Okay.
And it's a ghost town, but it's a little touristy trap. It's called 4 Mile.
Okay.
And it's called 4 Mile because it's 4 miles from Custer to this place. The stage stops, that's how they were labeled, like 20 mile, 15 mile, the closer you got to your location.
Right.
A lot of the buildings there are not original. They've been brought in.
Okay.
But the actual location itself was a legitimate stage stop.
And you can still see the wheel marks
For the
from
wagons. There's
Wow.
there's an empty spring. There's still what word am I looking for?
spring.
A spring in the back corner of their property.
Okay.
But we've got flashlight interactions, we've got EMF hits, periscope hits, and then with the girls with the phantom smells in the back corner. It's a couple acres, but in the back corner of this little place, they have a stockade built, and it wasn't. There was a stockade there at one time. They rebuilt one, for fun, for the touristy thing.
But it's the same spot.
Same spot, and we had the girls
Okay.
investigate, and we come in as the guys, and the girls like, I smell like
It was
cologne.
like cologne.
And I'd walk over.
Really strong.
I would walk over, and I'd barely smell it. And it was like it was gone.
Disappear.
And as soon as I would leave, and the girls are still standing there, it would come back. It's like Mr. Spooky Casanova guy kind of.
Right, like, if you were there, I'm leaving. Isn't that interesting? That's what I'm talking about. That's stuff like that. And you know what? That's the part that I'm talking about, you guys, that how do you capture a smell on equipment? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you going to do? But, like, when you all are standing there, like, do you smell it? Do you smell it?
Right.
So to me, that serves as, and I know you can't present it to, let's say if you got a client, but like you guys said, like, because let's face it, if you're in a team, somebody says you smell it, you either say yeah or no, I don't smell anything.
Right.
Doesn't mean the other person's not smelling it, but in a way that kind of acts as like a form of validation.
Right.
Or like you said, that as soon as you walked away,
It
that
went away.
smell comes back.
Well, I was going to say that a lot of times what we'll do is if because we have three women and 3 men on this team.
Okay.
And that wasn't planned. It just happened that way. I want everybody to understand that.
And it works out great because sometimes what we'll do is we can send the women out,
Right.
and they come back and they'll just kind of keep mum on what's going on. They'll
Right.
just kind of keep to themselves. And then we could go out. We may not experience anything, or if we do, then we come back. And then, we'll exchange notes and say, okay, what did you guys experience? And then we start explaining it, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, that's exactly what we got too. Yeah, we smelled this perfume over here. Well, yeah, that's what we smelled too. And
Right.
yeah, this is what happened. So it does validate that within the group.
Mm-hmm.
And it is kind of nice to have this interaction where we do have 3 women and 3 men, because then sometimes when the guys will go into a place and there's absolutely nothing going on, and then we can go back and we can say, okay, girls, why don't you go on in?
And it'll happen.
And
it'll
man,
happen.
they'll just get
vice versa.
They'll just get some crazy stuff.
That's what I was going to say. Yes.
Yeah. So it really does. I think for our team it works
Makes a
great,
difference, and it works great.
And then too, we can buddy up. Deb and I could go out and investigate a certain area, and then come back, because it doesn't have to always be guys and girls.
Right.
So we try to, I guess, to get the best bang for the buck. From our members. To see what works best. See what if we can get some activity.
What he's trying to say is, use all the angles possible.
You guys have dirty minds.
I don't know where you were going with that. Back to the subject when you were talking about the phantom smells.
You gotta watch what he eats sometimes.
Oh, we're going there, ain't we? It has nothing to do with that. But when we're talking about the phantom smells, the fun thing, like we're talking about with what we do with the Adams house, Deadwood. The fun thing is, every once in a while, you will smell cigar smoke, and there's a certain type of, like a rosy perfume. It smells like old school, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And the fun thing is, that actually has happened on the investigations, because we've investigated the home as regular investigators. Then, of course, with these paranormal tours, if you will.
Okay.
And the fun thing is, during the tours, that has happened a few times, and then the tour attendees get to experience that too. And it's really neat to watch the looks on their faces. All of a sudden, their eyes get big. Like, what am I smelling? Like, oh, well, that that happens here once in a while, kind of.
And yeah, it's like I didn't manufacture that.
Exactly. Right. Excuse me.
So which one of you guys do you consider, or is there anybody, I know you got your psychic in training, but were any of you guys sensitive? When I say sensitive, don't take it the wrong way. I don't mean psychic.
No,
I mean...
no. I'm about as sensitive as a rock.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Probably dead, I guess. Probably dead.
Yeah, probably dead.
Okay. Because I was going to say, I know that usually in a team, there's one that's more sensitive, picks up things, if not out and out psychic, if they don't want to, but they're more sensitive, like they just pick up on stuff more than some of the other team members. And like you said, there's some that are like, forget it.
Right. No, but and the way Black Hills Paranormal Investigations works, and we have our 6 members, and that's pretty much, I like it that way. At one time we had up to 11, which was way too many people to try to control.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, with that being said, we're not looking for anybody right now, but if somebody does contact us, like Lisa was the last one, and it's kind of an extreme vetting process, like as far as investigators, like our team, as soon as you say I'm sensitive and I see dead people, we're like, thanks, but no thanks. That isn't how we play the game.
Okay, so any potential BHPI investigators, whatever you do, don't say you're sensitive. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
In other words, say, never heard nothing, never seen nothing, never felt nothing.
No, how at least for me. But when I look for passion, honest to God passion for what we're doing, and I also look for somebody who's done a little bit of bit of background research on their own. I don't want because we actually have people that contact us and go, "Hey, man, what's up, bro? I watch Ghost Adventures and all the ghost shows on TV. I want to be an investigator." I'm not exaggerating.
I believe you. Believe me, I believe you.
You're like, thanks, but no thanks. And then we've given public presentations, and then afterwards, people come up and talk to you.
Okay.
And there's people walk up to me like they think they're from, like, what is that, The Sixth Sense? Hi, my name's Bob, and I see dead people.
You're
well,
like, congratulations.
Exactly. You should probably see your local psychiatrist, kind of thing,
We look for people with integrity.
Thank you.
Sure.
People that are that they aren't going to come back and say and lie about evidence or
Right, exactly.
about things. I mean, because there's absolutely no reason to. I mean, because, and I'll tell you right now, within this group that we have, I trust each and every one of these guys. If they said that, holy crap, man, I saw, I saw this, I saw that, or I experienced this.
Right, and you know what, Mark? That's exactly what I'm talking about. That you guys have experience that you didn't capture, or whatever. Like, how you,
Right.
Either you weren't prepared, or it's just something that, like, when you got slapped on the forehead, how do you capture that unless somebody was standing with you?
Right.
But you trust your team members that when they tell you, I felt, smelled, saw, whatever, or even a feeling.
Exactly.
You know, hey, this person wouldn't tell me this unless they really actually had that experience. That counts for a lot. Let me tell you.
Well, we have actual written bylaws that outlines all of our responsibilities as paranormal investigators.
Mm-hmm.
Not only responsibilities to each other, but to our clients.
Okay.
And that, it's always about helping the client, educating the client. And it's not about like what Mo and these guys had said earlier about when we go to investigate, we're not going to investigate a haunting. We're going to investigate looking for reasonable explanations for what's going on. But it's all about being professional
And honest.
and honest. And because there's absolutely no reason to present evidence out there to the public, because you've seen it. How many sites?
Well, let me ask you: have you ever gotten that? Let's say somebody tells you, "Hey, come on, come to my house. I'm hearing, seeing, whatever they're describing," and almost, I want to say they might be a little bit excited about it.
Yeah.
And you guys go out there, and you're like, "There's nothing here except a lot of imagination. There's just nothing." Do you? How do you handle that when you get somebody like that that's hoping that you're going to tell them how many and what their names are?
Well, with that being said, when we get requests for investigations,
Right.
like it'll usually be myself and Scott, who's not here, our case manager. We'll do a walkthrough, and we'll take Mark a lot of the times because Mark being 26 years in the police force, he's really good at reading people.
Okay.
Mark, and if there's any inclination that somebody might be a little sketchy, like Mark, come on with us, listen to this guy, and Mark will tell us he's batshit crazy, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry. But really, and he's like, no, and we won't do investigations with people like that because sometimes you do get the vibe that all they want is like the notoriety.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
Hills, like a big motel. It'd be great if they could say it's haunted because, oh boy, I can make so much more money.
Yeah.
Sure.
And we don't charge for investigation and stuff. And so for us to go in there and help you make money, for me, that's it's just wrong. That's
Sure.
not what
It's genuine.
Thank you. We're not here to do that.
And let me ask you, have you ever gone into, not even that, that's like, let's say you do that preview, contact with the client and everything is okay, but when you go in there at the end of the day, whether you tell them, look, we just didn't come up with anything.
Exactly. We're honest. And, and obviously we don't live there 24/7. So
Right.
is anything happening? Possibly, but it didn't happen when we were there.
And we've actually had some people that have been a little upset.
They got really upset.
That's exactly where I was going with this.
Yeah.
That
And-
it's like, what do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, because they want something
So bad.
badly
Mhm.
to be there.
I don't care what you say. It's Uncle Bob. Okay, whatever you say, buddy. Hey,
But-
that's all good.
But that's not the way we work.
But every investigation is a snapshot in time,
Right.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
what it is.
But then on the other hand, it's like they may have somebody there, and then it's like, oh, these people are here.
Yeah, let me make myself
It's
scarce.
like, ooh, we don't know what they're here for. Let's just hide out. I
Exactly.
think that we're gone now, and they won't mess with us.
But but you can't make stuff
Not
up.
on demand.
No.
I mean,
Right.
you can't make things happen on demand
Right.
either.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. That, like, you made a good point. At least for us, I'm not telling you you're wrong or a liar. It's just
Right.
that now for us,
Nothing happened.
We don't
Right.
nothing happened. Like, oh,
Well, we've even bowed out of some investigations. We had one poor soul that contacted us and was
okay.
so sure that she had something going on. But as we delved a little deeper into her background, she had some very real problems.
I was about to say, okay, yes, that happens a lot, more often than not, where people like.
And she was honest with us.
But she was very honest.
And she even told us the meds she was taking.
Right. And so we thought, well, let's check out those meds. And Mo was able to do that through his wife because she's a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
So we come to find out that, that can cause a lot of the things that she's claiming she's experiencing. We went back and met with her again, and we politely bowed out of the investigation. We said, sorry, but we honestly believe that we cannot give you the help you're looking for.
Talk to your
doctor. We are not psychiatrists. We are not doctors. We would be remiss if we were to go in and conduct an investigation, and what, God forbid, if we even thought that we might have got something,
right?
It's a mental issue,
and that would put them over the deep end, and something.
Yeah, because they just the way they comprehend it is not maybe the way you're delivering it, and
exactly.
And so we are by no means in that position to do that, and we'll bow out of those every time, because if we even feel that there's a situation like that, we're going to step away from it. We're not going to be mean. We're not going to be, insensitive to them and their
of course,
stuff. But it's important that too many people out there, especially some paranormal investigators, will take advantage of that, and will use
they don't know when to say no
as a crutch to say, well, the reason that you're experiencing this stuff is because you're experiencing bad stuff going on in your house. And they have absolutely no business being in this business.
Yeah, if you've got somebody with any type of mental illness, and especially something that could cause them to either hallucinate or anything like that, you're treading a very, very fine line, telling people, like you said, you might tell somebody nothing to worry about. Yeah, there's a ghost, nothing to worry about. And for them, they're like, oh my God. That's it. I'm going to get possessed, because their perception of reality
is skewed. And with to add to what Mark said, as we've been in the business, 10 years now, and we have locally, a lot of people know who we are,
right?
And if we give public presentations or when we investigate, people hang on our every word.
Yes.
So we went in there and do not go into your basement. It's Satan and his loyal minions. You should probably sell your house. A lot of people would.
Unfortunately, yes. Yes, we do get that.
You're like a power monger or something, but no, that isn't what we're about. And we don't want to scare people. We really don't.
And you know what? And I know exactly. I remember one time, this was a few years back, I was the one that did the pre-interview with a client. And one of the questions that we asked was, are you, the adults, are you guys taking any medications?
Exactly.
Not in any way to say, anything bad, but we need to know, especially whether it's because of your condition or the medications, if they can cause any type of side effects. Just so happens that both parents were taking antidepressants. That's okay, fine. So I noted it, and we went in there. Then when we're in there and we're taking our base readings and everything, all of a sudden, I see the hallway, and I see Dad pouring himself a big stiff drink. And I'm thinking to myself, you're taking medications and you're drinking alcohol? Well, guess what? As far as I was concerned, their credibility was
sure.
And it was there was really didn't capture anything. As a matter of fact, we captured more outside than actually inside the house. But at the same time, you're thinking, you know what? Your word, when you're describing anything to me, is just not the same, not because you're taking meds, that's neither here nor there, but I'm seeing you mix alcohol with a drug that you should not be drinking.
Right.
And he was like, and I was like, oh, you know what? This is not good. This is not good. And we ended up not going back, and we wrapped it up, but looking back at it, I realized that a good portion of what was going on there was dysfunction within the family unit and stuff going on. And it's just that we didn't have that heads up, like you said, when you're ready to backpedal and say, you know what? you guys do not need a paranormal team in here.
You need professional help. Yeah, you need psychologists.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes I look when we go into investigations at what people, if they have books.
Look at their books. We look at their DVDs just in glancing. See what they read. See what they watch.
Okay, well, you know what should have been our first tip-off when we get there. First of all, the house is decorated all in black and white, which is fine. Hey, they have two mannequins dressed in black and white in the living room. Two ladies, the wigs, everything, posed in the living room. So we're thinking, oh, maybe they work in the fashion industry,
right.
Or or maybe they have a store. I mean, we went through all these possible reasons why you have two full-size mannequin women dressed all in black and white to coordinate with the rest in the living room. And you could tell all of us that walked by there, we're like getting a little bit weirded out, but we're like, okay. No, they had them there like no reason. Like, no, they weren't in the fashion industry. They didn't have a store. They didn't have no reason why they had two women mannequins in their living room. And that was like, later on, we were like looking at one another like,
maybe that was their party.
So, yeah, but see, that's the kind of stuff, unfortunately, you don't find out about till you're right there.
Exactly.
And you know what? I'm the first one. I can handle weird. That to me, that's not a put off when it comes to clients. Weird is fine with me. Like I said, why be normal? But there's certain things that like, you know what? I'm going to go into the Twilight Zone with you, and I don't want to go.
Some weird could be a little
I don't want to go there with you, because this can get strange in and of itself, but you know that there's something else going on in that person's reality. And you know what? This is a good story, Mo, because a lot of, especially new paranormal groups, don't realize how easily you can find yourself in that situation right there.
That's true. Yeah. We got called out, this a couple years ago, and Scott, our case manager, and I went out to check it out. We didn't investigate, of course. We got called out to a place out east of town. It was basically, I'm thinking to the bet, and this is me, pure speculation, I think it was like a crack house. We went there, there's a bunch of kids running around the front yard. There's a kid, he had to be 12 or 13, drinking beer on the steps.
Oh, yes.
No, we walk in the house, there is one piece of furniture. It is a kitchen table. There's no other furniture in the house.
Oh, my God.
The people that called us were not present. There were no adults present. And we're like, we walked through the house. We're leaving now. Never called them back. We probably should have called the local law enforcement is what we should have done.
So who contacted you guys originally?
Apparently the owner of the house. And we set up a time to do a walkthrough, it was like 8 o'clock on a Tuesday or whatever have you, and then that's what we ran into.
So what you're saying is when you show up, there's just a kid, a piece of furniture, no adults?
Plural, and a table. That is it. Not even pictures on the wall, just an empty shack, basically. It was a mobile home.
Holy crap.
It was kind of creepy because we walked in. I thought somebody was going to jump out from behind.
I was going to say, didn't you guys
Children of the Corn?
Oh, yeah, I know. It's like, okay, it's like, that's so. See, that's what I'm saying. Exactly that. All of a sudden, you find yourself right in the middle of, okay, like how fast can we get out of here?
Exactly.
My last question for you guys, because I know we're getting. Have you guys had any investigations or any experiences tied into Native American land or locations or anything like that? Yay?
Okay. Now, no, I won't say land because we have been. There's a couple times when I was with VHAPS that we were asked to go out to the nearest reservation to Rapid City, Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. Of course, we thought that would be very cool because they're very, very interesting because of the history and the culture of the Native Americans.
Okay.
We were called immediately after that by the location was the medical clinic. They had a new administrator. He called us and said, no, you're not coming in. They didn't want and this was like 10 years ago, they didn't want a bunch of white folks stirring up bad medicine.
Okay.
Being said, the house that I got slapped in was the west side of Rapid City. We got an EVP. We could not, it was in a language we did not know.
Okay.
Some of us were listening. We had some friends listen to it. Somebody says, that sounds kind of like Lakota.
Mm-hmm.
So Mark and Josh, a former member of our team, they contacted Ernie LaPointe. He's like the great grandson of Sitting Bull.
Yeah, great. Yeah, the actor.
Like
Okay.
that, legit. And they know him, and he said, "Sure, I'll listen to it." And he said it was Nakota with an N, not Lakota, a different dialect.
Okay.
And we had walked in and said, "Hey, it's Mo and Mark, and yeah, you know, your typical EVP stuff." And the reply we were getting was like, "What do you mean?" It didn't understand what we were saying.
What? See?
What did
Oh
you
my
say?
God, I love that. Because that right there is like,
And then come to find out where this house is on the west side of Rapid City, a little bit farther west of town as you're heading up this little canyon. There used to be an internment camp for the natives when all the white folks were rounding everybody up back in
oh my
the day.
God.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And you know
And
what?
that-
You bring
and
up
that
a
was-
very good point that a lot of people, especially when they're doing this historical, that they expect all the ghosts to know English.
Oh, no.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Is like, hello.
They have the international ghost hunting team, and they capture English EVPs or English speaking, I guess.
Yeah.
And they're like, "You're in Romania." And they're like, "What's your name?" Like, "My name's Bob. What's yours?"
Exactly.
Come on.
Come on, folks. Really, like, yeah, modern time. But especially if you're in, have you guys had any experience? I know I had said Native Americans was the last thing, but with, because I know there was a Chinese population there in Deadwood, right? That
Yes.
did that part of town. Have you
Yeah.
guys had anything going on
Well,
in that
that's why
part?
they took me on. And little did they know that I speak no Chinese.
Oh, okay.
She's Mexican. She's not even Chinese.
Syrian.
You know, and it's funny because Deadwood had a very large.
Like that's what she's saying, yeah.
And so, and it is interesting because we have never captured at least anything that.
But we never investigated farther down
Yeah.
into where
But
Chinatown
yeah,
basically was.
I mean,
Which we haven't.
But
Because
then
there's
again-
nothing there anymore.
but then again, some of the things that you get that you may not quite understand that
Right.
they sound garbled to you.
Mm-hmm.
But no, we haven't.
Right. That basically what you might be actually listening to is just another language, and
Well, yeah, but I would think that you would probably hear. It was kind of like when we captured that EVP in Nakota.
Mhm.
It was very guttural. You could understand.
The pronunciation.
The
of it.
Yeah,
there
you
was
could.
a pronunciation.
It just made no sense to
stuff.
us.
It just did, it was just like another language. So I would suspect it'd be the same thing. Is if we did capture, let's say, for instance, the Chinese language, we would
And we're not
probably.
going to call you. Just
we would probably. We wouldn't be able to, but we would probably definitely say, well, this is another language. You know,
right.
it would come across.
And then you follow it back and see if you can find anybody to help you translate it.
Yeah, but we've never captured.
no.
In fact, that Nakota.
Let me tell you something. That's such an interesting story. That's great.
That's only happened in 10 years. One time.
Yeah.
One time.
But you know what? It makes you wonder how many teams out there have captured responses that were just in another language, probably saying exactly that. What are you saying?
Well, yeah.
And they're like, huh? Oh, that's the.
Which reminds me, this has nothing to do with the language thing, but we were talking about historical things. We were investigating in a little gold mining town up in the hills called Galena. A very small place.
Okay.
Teeny place. Up on the hillside. We're investigating. It's a new construction once again, but of course the land there where the guy built the land had a history of 100 years back where it was mining.
Okay.
In the basement of this guy's house, I think it was the basement, remember we got that old man and it says, "I was here first."
Oh.
Now hold on. Now we come to find out there's a story where the guy's property is like you're picturing a hillside, right?
Right.
And of course he didn't do it. Many years ago, somebody as a miner drilled in this way, directly into the hillside. Somebody drilled from the top of the hill down, and of course they intersected. There was a dispute, and one of them got killed.
Wow.
That's documented. We know that. We don't know who killed who, though, with that voice insofar as saying, "I was here first." But the cool thing was it actually tied in to the history of the location.
Yeah, in Galena, that was a silver town, wasn't it?
That was a
Yeah.
silver town. Silver
Yeah,
mines.
Galena means silver.
Silver, yeah.
Right. And see, that's what I think is like, of all the things that you expect to get, that right there ties in directly to what you know. That actually occurred there.
Exactly.
Of the land.
Of the land, yeah. It's like, let me tell you something. People, that'll make somebody earthbound. I was here first.
Right.
You know, think about it.
Yeah.
All right, guys, it has been fantastic to interview you guys.
We've had a lot of fun.
I'm going to be recontacting you guys too. I think that's so interesting that you guys have this, like you said, this little piece of history out there where you guys are at that other places just don't have.
Yeah, we
you
love
know, and also that thing that you got going on at Halloween. Let me tell you something. You guys need to think of something to scare what I call the straights, you know? Do one of those like, oh my God, dude, did you see that? Oh, you know, or something like that, you know?
Dude,
Well, we gotta
And
tell
then
you,
put a camera and then, you know, do it like, you know.
the fire department.
How many people can go out a doorway at once?
The fire alarms used to go off there every time we would go out to the Adams house.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The fire department already was. They knew ahead of time that we were coming because the alarms would go off. So
Really?
every year, well, except for was it last year?
Yeah.
The year before, they didn't go off, but.
When
that's kind of a weird thing.
they won't even come out anymore. They'll go as BHPI there. They're like, yeah. They're like, okay, no biggie.
That's why
Oh,
the
they-
alarms are going off.
Something sets the alarms off when we're in there. We don't know why, other than to get all the bodies out of the house because there's a lot of people
Yeah,
in
it's
there.
like, man, all these people, what are they all doing? It's like, oh my God, it's Halloween again. Guys, it has been fantastic to speak to you guys. It has been great. I loved it. And absolutely, you guys have a great team. You have a fantastic team, Mo. All of you guys.
It's a lot of fun, Marlene. We really do. We're serious when we need to be, but we also, as you can tell, have a lot of fun.
You know
too.
what? And I was talking to somebody. I said, you know what? That's one thing about the paranormal. Some people get it too serious. It's like, chill out, laugh about it.
Exactly.
Because I know we're talking about dead people, but come on, you know, they get all caught up and it's all so serious, and it's like there's a lot of times that you got to laugh about stuff because if not, it becomes too over the top, you know.
Absolutely.
But anyway, guys, take care. Thank you so much for spending this time with me.
Thank you.
It was fantastic. I really appreciate it.
It was
Okay.
nice to meet you.
Good
Have
night.
a good weekend, guys. Take care.
Okay, I'm going to call you here in a few minutes.
So, guys, what did you think? I think it was great. I love those stories. You know, because, again, I don't know if you've noticed, besides what Mo said and his team, you know, how long they've been together, but that they you could tell just by the way they're sitting there that they work well together, which, again, I'm going to tell you, this does wonders. This right there is your first sign that you're going to get a team that is going to stay together. Because I've heard a lot of people that go, oh, because I was in teams and there was like what they call the paradrama. And it's like, come on. You know, I understand, you know, things can happen, but overall, if you know, what really counts is when you have a disposition for all your team members to get along and to be on the same page. As you could tell, they are all on the same page. Okay, which speaks volumes probably about the type of work and the investigations that they do. And let me tell you something, they were very clear about how they handle investigations from the moment, whether it's to accept a member through, you know, a pre-interview with the client till afterwards. You know, they have their standards. And, you know, all teams have different standards, and that's fine. But I'll tell you this much. Seeing something like that, more than not, 9 times out of 10, is a good indicator that this team is professional. And like he said, if they don't find anything, guess what? They're going to tell you, sorry, we didn't capture it. They're not going to tell you lied. All they're going to tell you is, look, sorry, but we didn't capture anything. Or like he said, that if there's any moment that they need to back out of an investigation because for whatever reason it's just not right, he's going to back his team out, you know, and away they go. And by this is, what I'm trying to say is that sometimes, you know, you'll get team members who are so desperate that they want to go out on an investigation that sometimes they say yes to investigations that they should say no. Either no from the beginning because there's all these signs, or no when they get there, which, by the way, you can do that. You can do that, absolutely. You know, and this works both ways. No, if you're a team and you get there, especially for the team leader, and you get there, like when he got there and all he's got is a piece of furniture and children, and he was like, we're out of here. Okay? Or the other way around. If you're a client and you get a team show up and you're like, oh my God, what is this? Somebody that is not what you expected. You know what? You have every right to tell them, look, I'm sorry, but I think you should leave. And you might think, well, maybe that's discourteous or I had them out here. But if there's something that you don't feel comfortable with and you realize that when they get there, by all means, you as a client, the vice versa, the scenario, you can do that as well. Because, there's just something about them that maybe you might feel they're unprofessional or just don't get the right vibe. You don't think it's the right thing. By all means, you could say, nope, thanks, but no thanks. So anyway, guys, it's been great. I love producing these shows for you because you could tell I love to speak to all these paranormal investigators from across the country, or if they're an author or whatever, because as you could tell, besides the actual experiences they've had within the team, like that story that Mark said when he was stationed in Germany, and you could tell I love that story because it's so okay. Again, this was somebody that didn't have a childhood experience. He is in the military doing guard duty. So in other words, he's not primed for this experience. He's not. Okay. And all of a sudden he sees this thing where you could tell, I was thinking he's ready to, I'm sure that if that tower would have probably been lowered to the ground, he would have probably have vaulted and gone to the ground instead of going down the stairs. That's how scared he was by something that he couldn't see, but he knows it's there. Okay, and then when he talks to the other soldiers, everybody's got some version of that story. It makes you wonder, was this a residual haunting? Was this an intelligent haunting? What took place who was this person, if it was an intelligent haunting that was so bound to keep doing this guard duty? Okay, because that's what it sounds like it was. And you think, well, it's residual, but then, he talks about that really bad feeling that he got when he went through that landing where whatever it was supposed to be at. Okay? See, those are the stories which are great. And sometimes you will not hear, you're not going to see them in a book. Or it just does not hold the same intensity as when you hear somebody like Mark talk about this experience he had so many years ago when he was a soldier. Okay? Where it wasn't, like I said, you're not ghost hunting. You're not out there. You're not in the spooky house. You're not somewhere where it's dark. You're just doing your job and boop. It's almost like it hits you right across the face in the sense that, and what else are you going to do? Your mind is saying no, 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 but your eyes and your ears and everything is telling you something quite different. I think those are the best stories that, again, I know that science out there doesn't want to believe in some cases that there's life after death or something happens with our spirit, our soul, whatever you want to call it. But let me tell you something, when you hear stories like that, you can't help but think, absolutely, there's more to us than just this. I mean, when we take the dirt nap, folks, I think that yes, whether it's cremated or it goes in the ground, our body's done with, but our spirits and our soul, there's more to it. Something else happens with us after that. So anyway, guys, please subscribe to my channel. Hit the like button. Hit the like button now. And also, if you need notifications, you'll find out. Again, I'm going to remind you, I live stream a lot of times when I'm out in the field on YouTube or to Twitter via Periscope. All right. So if you want to find me on those two, social media outlets, by all means, hook up with me there. Sometimes, like I said, I go out there and I'll run some place out in the middle of the night because I need to check it out, and I live stream through that. Usually in the middle of nowhere, in the dark. Yeah, that's because sometimes when you got to go by yourself, you got to go by yourself if you want to check things out. Especially like what I've done, where I've gone out to places just to see what the feel of it is. It's not an official investigation, but there's a lot that you can pick up when you go out that first time. So anyway, guys, have a fantastic weekend. Stay safe and be good. Take care, all.